Put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
I love the efficiency of bourbon.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
I'm great. I mean, I got a lot to. I feel like we need to hurry up and get to Bear stuff. And at the end of the show, I got a lot of stuff I can tell you about, whether that's just what I'm trying to do in my life right now to get ready for this Friday night's high school shit, or stuff going wrong in my basement, or drama with the Bears-Packers tickets. So I got a lot to, and TV. We can talk TV later too, and obviously in a few minutes as well with Jeff Pearlman.
Yes, that's right. We got a jam-packed show. Jeff Pearlman, the writer of Winning Time. The title of the book is actually like, it's a very long title. I won't even try. But he's the writer of the book that inspired the hit HBO series Winning Time, and so he's going to talk to us about the show and the fact that the show needs more eyes because HBO is under new management is clamping down. They're not renewing a lot of great shows. Like, I'm a huge fan of Perry Mason, and Perry Mason is not coming back next season, and that breaks my heart. The same with you, right, Dan? I know you love.
Yeah, I thought season 2 was phenomenal.
Yeah,
and it's such a blown opportunity. Maybe it can get picked up somewhere else.
Yeah, it would be great. It would be great, especially with the same cast, because I love that cast. Tooch is in the chat room. He's not backstage. He's in the chat room saying, I love Winning Time. He has caught up on all of them. Great to hear, Tooch. Exactly. He watches everything. Also, towards the end of the show, if we have time, I'd like to talk about a show I binged watched this weekend with my wife called Silo. Have you heard of Silo?
I think Tooch has talked about it. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I love that show. Highly recommend it. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'll show a trailer. But Dan and I wanted to start the show talking about Steve Mongo McMichael, who is one step closer to being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think I've got a tweet here. I guess they still call it a tweet from
an X.
An X. Yeah, that's right. An X from Jared Payton. He put this out. I hope you can see it on the screen. I've been given the incredible honor of inducting Steve McMichael into the Hall of Fame when he goes in as the first kid to induct his father back in 1993. It feels like history repeating itself. I'm still in awe that Mike McMongo handpicked me for this big moment. And here's some video.
That is awesome. Dude, chill. You're going to be in there with my old man.
Yeah.
You're going to be in there with my old man.
I hope they put you next to Walter.
Dude, how cool is that?
Amazing. What was your thought when you saw that, Dan?
Honestly, and I apologize for hitting the mic there. It made me sad so much more again to see Mongo in that predicament. But, and I hate to make it negative because I'm so happy for. I mean, he earned it. He earned the Hall of Fame induction based on his own merit and not because people feel badly for him because of the condition. But I got to be honest with you. When I saw that, I thought, can he hear Jarrett? Does he know Jarrett's there? Can he communicate? I don't know the answers to this. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I don't, does he know he's could be in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. I hope so. I know, Jim McMahon's been there recently, and obviously Jarrett Payton, the wrestler Ric Flair's been there, and they've taken the photos with him, and his wife has praised them. But I don't know if Mongo talks or if Mongo hears, and I hope he does. But that's what I thought. I was like, is he aware? I just desperately hope that he's aware.
I hope so too, and I think that in a case like this, they should really expedite. If he gets officially voted in, I'm not quite sure on the procedure. If anybody knows in the chat room, please type that out for us. But it looks like, it's almost a certainty that he's in. So why not, do something before the year's end, a special Hall of Fame ceremony just for Mongo. I know, if you do that, might have, a lot of other players who are deserving and are in the last years of life. They might want to petition the NFL, and it could get crazy. But sometimes exceptions are a good thing, and I think it would be a great thing for Mongo, who is beloved for so many reasons, not just his playing, but the guy had a larger than life personality. And the only thing that would have been better for him from a career standpoint would have been if he would have won the mayoral race for mayor of Romeoville, Illinois, which he ran and unfortunately lost. But I would have loved to have seen him as mayor, holding a city council meeting and pushing a bill through and stuff. He could have had a dictatorship in Romeoville. That would have been outstanding.
Well, his personality was very akin to Jesse Ventura. I don't know about his politics, but Ventura, of course, was a wrestler. Mongo wrestled after the Bears, but Jesse, ended up being mayor and then ultimately governor. So, and that was moderately successful from what I recall. But Mongo had a very over the top, like you said, sort of disposition, such as Jesse Ventura. Like, he was really made for wrestling in so many ways.
He was.
So yeah, maybe he could have pulled it off. Again, I have no idea which side of the aisle he was on at all. I don't know if I ever heard, all I ever heard him really talking about other than football is rattlesnake hunting.
That's right. The other memory that I have of Mongo off the field was the local NBC station here, I think for a year, maybe 2 years, they had him on Sunday night at 10:30 as their Bears host to talk about the game that day. And Mongo would always show up totally fucked up. Just he was messed up. And sometimes it was scary. Like, I remember one show, I got to look through YouTube, maybe it's posted on there, but he pulled out a huge, big fucking hunting knife. And he, it was like he was on the verge of swearing with every word, and he was drunk. And I'm forgetting who the co-host was. It wasn't Mike Adamley. It could have been Mark Giangreco. And there was a certain nervousness going on here because Mongo was like, a wasted Mongo, an inebriated Mongo is a dangerous Mongo.
It's ironic you brought up Mike Adamley there. He's got his own troubles. Like, Mike is really suffering dementia.
Yeah, big time.
And doesn't know who he is anymore from various published reports.
Yeah, and he was a guy who kept himself in tip-top shape, so he could live for a long, long time. But unfortunately, in that condition, that's my mom had bouts with dementia and Alzheimer's. I don't think it was nearly as bad as Adamley's is now, but man, it's no way to go through life, man. I tell you. There's another thing that I wanted to share regarding Mongo is, did you ever hear of the the baseball game, the Cubs game. Where
Oh yeah, when he got kicked out.
Yes.
Yes, I remember that.
Tell me if you can hear this.
Mongo's home, Chicago. And don't worry, I'll have some speaks with that home plate umpire after the game. Ooh, a 1, a 2, a 3. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the ground. I need some peanuts and crackers, Jack. 3 strikes, you're out in the old ball game.
Isn't that classic?
Yeah, I mean, why would you kick him out of the game for this?
Well, the rule. The Major League Baseball rule is that you can't publicly put up anything in the home stadium, scoreboard, or anything in the PA that is threatening towards a baseball umpire, because you get the 40,000 fans rushing the field to beat the shit out of the guy if you got a guy like Mongo criticizing the umpire. So, I can see why Angel Hernandez, the umpire, was not a very good umpire, so he deserved that probably moment of fear that he had there. But I understand the rule. And then the other thing about that game is that the Cubs staged a dramatic comeback. I wish I would have pulled the right video, but it was a dramatic. Did I load it? I hate to play it again. No, I didn't load it, but it was in the 9th inning, they got runners on base to take the lead, and it was a rundown between first and third, and then second and third, and then back in first and third, and the guy on third goes home, scores, and it was a dramatic. So he missed. I'm sure by that time he was sleeping in a limo on the way home because he was so drunk.
Mongo would go through periods too, like where he's a little heavy in that video, but he would lose weight and get back into shape. Kind of go up and down on that, because man, by the time he retired from wrestling, I know that was so much, or football and went to wrestling, he was dramatically fit condition. I mean, he could have fought, had he been younger, he could have fought in the UFCs, the kind of shape he was in circa 96, 7. I know you weren't a wrestling fan per se, is you've told me the stories about going to Arlington Heights there in the building and how much you hated taking your younger members of your family to see WWE, but Mongo was in tremendous shape at one point. So
yeah, I used to follow when he was wrestling. I used to follow it only in terms of the news reports, or the sports section would have highlights of his fight and so forth. And so I saw it from then. And his wife at the time, they later divorced. She was like his manager. She was a part of the act. Isn't that so? Yeah,
she later. God, I don't want to. Say I don't want us to get in trouble for libel, but at the height of, you remember, when Chris Benoit killed his wife and his kid, allegedly. I think that's an accepted fact now.
Okay.
And then killed himself. Well, the media really wanted to talk negative things about wrestling at the time because it was pertinent, it was relevant. So they had Deborah McMichael on during those eras where Benoit had the family tragedy there in circa 07. And she said that because she got with Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was for a 4 or 5 year period the biggest star ever. I mean, right there with Hulk Hogan in terms of the biggest wrestling star of all time. And she said he would get drunk in character, be in his Stone Cold character and abuse her physically and beat the shit out of her, doing the stuff he would do on TV, what, and in her face, yelling and hitting her and stuff. Now, again, that could all be lies. But Mongo's ex-wife, again, Deborah, went to Steve Austin after that, and she said he just physically beat the shit out of her.
Wow. There's something about that wrestling world, man, that it to me, every time I see a news report or I see these guys interviewed, they are just right there on the edge of illegal activity, illegal violence, and so forth. These guys, and I would not dare tell them that their sport is fake, although I know for a fact that it is. But because I feel like they would do the same thing to me that Hulk Hogan and Mr. T did to Richard Belzer and put a chokehold on the guy and put him to sleep.
Yeah, and Belzer sued. They had to pay out on that.
Yeah, they should.
He died recently, Mr. Belzer.
Richard Belzer died, I think, earlier this year, January.
Did Mike North do one on him?
Yes, we did. By the way,
I can listen to all of those. That's fun stuff, even though it's negative stuff. But
yeah, they're fun. I no longer do the show with Mike. We passed it on to Joe Mandel because of my condition, and I told Mike it's better if you maybe give it to somebody like Joe. Actually, Mike came up with Joe's name, and I told him I couldn't do it anymore. And so they did just recently. They did. Bill Friedkin. Yeah. So that's actually one I would have loved to have done.
Speaking of your condition, can you tell any of us what's going on right now with you?
Yeah, my arm is recuperating. I'm getting a little bit more motion. Like when I bring up my arm, let's see if I can get it in the shot here. When I bring up my arm this way, right here is where I start to feel like there's bandages in my elbow, and so I can bring it closer. Here's where it starts to hurt. And so, unlike this arm, of course, where I could bring it all the way up to my face and punch myself in the face. So from the swelling and stitching standpoint, it's still on the mend. Every once in a while, I'll get a shooting pain. I don't know if that's because the stitches are expanding or what the hell is going on. And I think that the biggest thing now is I'm just fighting through the mental frustration of being in this condition. The stitches up here don't hurt, but they're really swollen. I feel like I got a partial chest plate on when I walk around. And so, I just want to, I thought I had a doctor's appointment today, but it's actually tomorrow, and they should start to provide the rehabilitation I'll need to get my movement back and reduce swelling and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that.
What is the ETA on just the stitches dissolving?
You know what? I don't remember asking that question. So if I did, I don't remember the response. I think one of the guys in the hey, Heidi, how are you? I think it's like 4 months or so before they all dissolve. Let me see if I can bring this thing up and show you where it's at there. Some in the middle, as you can see, have started to dissolve. But if I had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If there's 12 stitches, then then two of them have dissolved. Yeah, that is gross. Tooch is backstage, so he's taking over the Barroom Network chat machine. That is gross.
Well, I'm sorry that you felt pain there. No, all jokes aside, No,
that's fine. I'm a big boy. I can deal with the pain. Although I gotta admit, like in front of the doctors and nurses and my friends, I try really, really hard to. And my kids, I try really, really hard to disguise the pain, but in front of my wife,
well, she should be the one person you could just keep it real with,
Yes, that's true. Bestest to you, Heidi. Thank you, Steve. And Michael Halatak. Is the team ring overly cautious on these injuries? Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that, Michael Halatak. We are in about 10 minutes or so. We're going to be joined by Jeff Pearlman, author of the hit book Winning Time. He's also written. What's the title of the Walter Payton book, Dan?
It's something to play off Sweetness. I forget the exact name.
Yeah.
I have it, and I thought it was a phenomenal book. But again, most Bears people and Walter, and we're all Walter people, right? But most, I'm not sure Eddie Payton or Jared's going to talk about how good the book is,
right.
But
yeah,
because it said a lot of dark things too. But I think that was his point. He said that Walter was his hero too, just like everybody else. But it was like he has more complexities than just like, oh, he's a practical joker and he played football. And it's just like the more complete that you saw him is like the more you could actually empathize with him. He just wasn't Superman. He actually did have problems like everybody else,
exactly.
But you can almost admire him more for overcoming those kind of things.
It's not called Never Die Easy, Mr. Mayhem. It's not called Walter Payton Never Die Easy.
Yeah.
The enigmatic life of Walter Payton.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, he talks about, things like Walter had the herpes and Hep C, and he liked to fuck,
Yeah.
But he talks about how a lot of people, like, falsely said that he liked men and stuff because his voice was high.
Yeah.
And like a lot of those things, because people tried to say that he had HIV when he got sick.
Right.
And all these things, he touches on that and defends Walter and says it was all horseshit. He didn't have AIDS, so.
Right. Yeah, that was I mentioned the name Mark Giangreco. I think he was a part of that in a sportscast on the 10 o'clock news. He mentions, I think I said
called him Gandhi. He said he looked like Gandhi.
Yeah.
Then he could take him.
Right. And Giangreco was just a jokester, and he's gotten in trouble a few times like he did that time for some of his jokes, but he didn't mean anything on purpose by it, but clearly it hurt the Payton family immensely. And when Walter met the media, he made a remark about that remark, an offhanded remark about that, saying something like, people will say what they want to say, but I don't remember the quote, but those are sad times.
May God be with you also.
Yeah, there you go. Well, a good recall. One of the saddest things I think in Chicago sports history is that when they had the services for Walter at Soldier Field, the stadium was only half full, and I think it had a lot to do with the city just not doing a good job. And in fact, scaring people away because it was a weekday and they were saying the traffic is going to be awful and this and that. So there are only 20,000 or so fans at that stadium. And I know how Chicago really loved Walter Payton. That place should have been packed. Every seat should have been packed. And I wish, the city would have done a better job of managing that whole thing. But
we should acknowledge that Giangreco and Walter did make amends. Before Walter passed, and Giangreco told the story and was crying that Walter, who held a grudge about it, kind of went out of his way to tell him that he forgave him. Like, it's not like he called Walter up, but Walter wanted to make amends with him, and he said it was like the best gift he ever had in life.
Yeah. By the way, that Never Die Easy is Walter's autobiography by Don Yeager. So I apologize for I don't know, not sure why I'm apologizing, but there was a book on Walter called Never Die Easy. I think that's kind of a strange title if it was written after his death, but I never read that one.
It had to be when he was alive, talking about his ability to not be tackled.
Yeah.
And just run over everybody and give them the stiff arm or throw them out of bounds and land on them. I mean, yeah, it had to be that. It can't be after he passed away. There's no one would use that.
Yeah, that would be way too weird.
I just wish that we knew about Mongo though, and I hope he knows what's happening. And it's unfortunate that it's his condition that's pushed this needle that way, but we'll take it for him,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And I wish they would memorialize these guys when they're all alive and they're all conscious, and there's been, I've seen a handful of Pro Football Hall of Fame inductions where the guy going up there to get inducted, he didn't know what was going on. He had that blank look on his face, I don't remember names right off the top of my head, but and so I'm sad that that's going to happen to Mongo or might happen to Mongo. Hopefully he's fully aware. And when we get Jarrett, we've been talking about getting Jarrett Payton on here. The problem though, Dan, is that he's got a newscast right the same time during our show, the 9 p.m.
He works
news
for WGN, right?
Yeah, WGN. So we might have to do an interview during the day or something like that, and then
which we were going to do with Bernard Berrien, and we wish his family, well, because he's in the eye of the hurricane, the storm down there. So
that's right. Last week we were going to talk to Bernard Berrien, former wide receiver for the Chicago Bears, went on to play with the Minnesota Vikings. Unfortunately, the California floods changed his schedule, but we'll try to have him back on here soon. And Will Wright has been doing a nice job of, trying to make some of these Bears players available to us. So hopefully we can continue that.
I was a legit fan of his, man. I won't be kissing his ass if I tell him that, for real.
Well, it's funny because you have such great recall of so many Bernard Berrien moments, and what's your number one favorite Berrien moment
right now? Because everybody brings up Calvin Johnson 2010 opening day when they changed the rule because they said he didn't complete the catch and that the Bears got away with one, and we did. We got a win that probably didn't deserve. But as I always reference, I'd love to hear Bernard say this. It happened to the Bears in 2004 in Detroit at Ford Field. Just shitty. Rex got hurt in week 3, and they had Jonathan Quinn and, Craig Krenzel. Although Craig won some games for us, we can't take that away from him. But Chad Hutchinson was the quarterback. It was a lost year. It was Lovey's first year. But Hutchinson threw a touchdown at Ford Field to Bernard Berrien that would have won the game. And they did that bullshit like with the catch and took it away from us. So I always thought in 2010 when everyone was saying this, like, well, shit, it's a makeup call for 6 years ago. Of course, nobody remembered 6 years ago.
Right.
I hope Bernard can say something about it and be like, man, that was a touchdown. Yeah, Bernard Berrien had that play in Detroit. And my other big memory of him was when we were in the NFC Championship game. Remember, the Saints came back. The Bears had a big lead, like 18-0 or something, because they had a safety. And the Saints came all the way back or got really close to coming back. And Rex suddenly got hot and went 5 for 5 on a drive and threw it, culminating in a touchdown with Berrien that really put the game away. So Berrien caught we always think of Thomas Jones reversing field and scoring, and rightfully so, in the snow and all that. But Berrien had a big touchdown there to cement that game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about Berrien. He was from an offensive weapon side. He was probably the third weapon, wouldn't you say? Thomas Jones first, and Mushin Muhammad second, and then Berrien.
Yeah, if you were going to do a pecking order, you would say that Muhammad was a free agent. They paid him more money than Bernard. Obviously, that's part of Bernard's departure. Going to Minnesota to getting a payday, which we can't fault him for, even though I want to fault him for it. But no, I fault the Bears manager. Don't let this guy go. He's your draft pick. Re-sign him. But Bernard was our deep threat. He was definitely our deep threat at the time, and was very good. And it really hurt the Bears when he left. They didn't really get another deep threat. I guess Johnny Knox had some moments, but he was, when he left, I felt like we didn't really replace him until we got Brandon Marshall. Yeah,
I would agree. There was that really sad period of time where Bears wide receivers were definitely among the worst in the league, if not definitely the worst. There was just a dearth of talent, and there were a couple of seasons there where it was laughable. And you include the fact that the offensive line wasn't much to speak of either. Bad times. And I can't wait to start talking about the 2023 Chicago Bears. We'll do that in about 30 minutes or so. We'll talk about the injuries. We'll talk about the quarterback situation. We'll talk about Tyson Bagent, the new hero for Chicago Bears fans. We'll have our media mashup as well. An extra long session, about 28 minutes. So we've got a lot to go over.
Is Jeff here already?
No, I should be here any minute. Why don't you very quickly tell us how was your weekend? You went to not weekend, but yesterday you were at a music festival, right?
Well, just Smashing Pumpkins, their tour. But yeah, it's always tremendous. If you don't mind me coming back to that, though, I was going to say the Tyson kid. How do you say his name again? Again, he played in West Virginia. I should know him. At Shepherd College. Bagent? Is it Bagent?
Right.
I know you're skeptical of him, and I am too. But Greg, again, I just mentioned this to you in Twitter, not to contradict you, but when you're like, he's going to clear waivers. This guy's clearing waivers. But I was just going to say, Greg really thinks that the Bears will have to protect him. When I saw that again, I was at work. I thought, man, this guy must have had 3 great drives or something. I mean, it was only one possession. I mean, he scored. I'm glad he scored, but he didn't even play the second half. I mean, yeah, I think we should pump the brakes on him a little bit.
Yeah, and by the way, what I put up on Twitter was if the Bears elect to put Bajent on waivers, I think that he will clear. And so immediately people think that I'm not a fan of Bajent, that I want him to go through waivers. So immediately people think that I'm not a fan of Bajent. What's going on here?
Even your own system thinks you're not a fan. It's just reiterating it.
What the hell's going on?
Even your own system thinks you're not a fan. It's just reiterating.
Where's that coming from? That was my laptop. That was
what the fuck is happening here? No, I didn't mean to say that you didn't like him personally or something, but I see your point. At the time, I didn't know the context because I was at work. And the fact that it was only one possession, which was a nice drive, but I thought, man, this guy must have had 2 solid quarters. And it was just one drive. I mean, but he was interestingly in ahead of Peterman. So maybe they keep him as the third and put Peterman on the practice squad. I don't know, but I don't think they cut PJ Walker though.
I think let me see if I got the soundbite loaded here of here it is. I think this is why Bajent got more snaps than Peterman. Basically what Luke Getsy is saying is that they allocated playing time based on who played the least during those Wednesday and Thursday practices versus the Colts. This is Luke Getsy.
Last week, I mean, we got a ton of reps in Indy, those 2 days. So that was like little 2 mini games that he got to play during the week. And so that's a lot of reps, not just necessarily for a quarterback, because a quarterback can probably handle it, but everybody around him, that's a lot of work. So I think that's a big factor in making that decision for the previous week. But no, I think Justin and the guys, there's been a lot of really good things going on. The meeting room conversations have been great and kind of building on what, we've talked about letting the players take it over. We've been trying to let that kind of happen now, and so we're in that phase, and I think they're in a good place. So we got a really good practice today and tomorrow, and then we get another week of it next week. So we feel good, regardless whatever coach and Ryan decide they want to do this weekend.
So I think that's good strategy. Is those mini games that they had Wednesday and Thursday, that was a lot of pounding that went on, and so I totally understand why most of the ones did not see action in Saturday's game. To me, it makes sense. You got to take care of those guys. Don't you agree with that?
I do, and I want to I'm not disagreeing with the members of the chat group that are pointing out that Walker has struggled and played poorly. I can't defend PJ Walker in that aspect, and they're correct. But let's just keep in mind he has played and started in the league and has some wins. And as much as we like the Bajent kid, and it's a great story, and he had great statistics, he won the equivalent of the Heisman at his level. However, he hasn't played against starters in the NFL, and PJ Walker has. So that you got to keep that full context. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. And in the media mashup, you'll hear some of those same points of view that you just shared there. And that's basically my point of view. Let me be clear about Tyson Bajent. I always have problems with it. Bajent. The guy has all of the tools, the size. He throws the ball with great precision. He throws bullets. He's decisive. He looks like the real deal. But let's remember, like Dan said, it's one drive up against seconds and thirds. He's got to prove it over a course of time. Could he be the next Brock Purdy in the NFL? Could be. I'm not saying he's not. But at the same time, if we really want to shoot for a playoff spot, do you start the season with him as your number 2 quarterback so that if Justin Fields gets hurt in a tie game in the third quarter, you're putting in a rookie who's never played an NFL snap or a Division I snap? You're putting him in there to try to win the game for Justin?
No.
Or are you going with a more established quarterback, PJ Walker, who had a 4-3 record last season? Nathan Peterman, who looked pretty good in that exhibition game. So,
but to your point, the Brock Purdy comparison, I think, is a valid one. But let's remember, it was Trey Lance who got hurt and Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. They just didn't say, well, the last guy in the draft, we like the way he looks. He's our number 2. I mean, he only got thrown in there because everybody else was hurt. I think that's what would have to happen for Mr. Bagent to get in there as well. So I think that the Bears will keep Walker. I mean, unless he just comes out and shits the bed. Remember Chad Hutchinson? We referenced him earlier. He was supposed to be the backup or even the starter potentially when Rex got hurt. And Kyle Orton ended up getting the job based upon the fact that Hutchinson was so bad in the last preseason game. So it would have to be something like that to get PJ Walker cut, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, sometimes the guy is a little slow to pick up a new offense. And clearly that's what's happening with PJ Walker, because I do believe that he's got talent. Luke Getzey was asked, you know, does Bagent really have a chance to be the number 2 quarterback on this team? This is his response.
I mean, anybody has a shot, right? All 3 guys have done a really nice job through training camp. I think you guys have seen, like most of the guys in our training camp, there's been good days and bad days for everybody, and those 3 specifically. So we're taking all that in. I know he had a great drive, and that's exciting for people. But that's one drive, so we're gonna make that part of the evaluation. But we're gonna take the whole training camp evaluation before we make a decision like that.
There you go. Almost.
Do you think that maybe
your words?
PJ Walker, I think if I were the Bears, I would play him at least a half against Buffalo just to see what he's got. But do you think maybe Walker, let's just obviously Fields is QB1 and maybe Bagent is 3rd. Do you think maybe Walker, if he gets cut, is because they like Peterman more and they keep Peterman as the 3rd or the backup? I mean, that could be plausible. I think Bagent maybe has got a spot as the number 3, and maybe Walker's battling Peterman for 2.
Yeah, and then the big thing I totally agree with you on that. I think we all know what the ceiling is for Peterman. He's been in the league now, 6 years? We know he's never going to be a number 1 quarterback. He's a backup quarterback that can get you, you know, if he's got to play for 5 weeks, he can get you a couple of wins. But what we don't know is about Tyson. Can he become a true number 1 quarterback? Or at the very least, can he become a quality backup quarterback where you're not, you know, saying, you know, the sky is falling if Justin Fields has to miss a month of football? So that's what we have to learn. You know, there's this big debate going on now whether Justin Fields should play Sunday. If he doesn't play Sunday or Saturday because of injuries to the offensive line, I'd love to see Tyson in there starting the game. With quality guys that are number 2s that are going to be backups to our starters, and maybe even give some reps to DJ Moore and so forth, and see what he can do. That way you get a really good evaluation whether you're going to keep him on the 53 as either the 3rd quarterback or the 2nd quarterback. Why not have a further look at him?
It kind of reminds me of Caleb Haney. Haney did well in the championship game, and the Bears were like, all right, well, we'll make him Jay's backup. In 2011, and then he got in there and we're like, oh shit. Well, the whole 2011 7-3 thing went straight down the toilet because he was the backup. He had a moment in the championship game against starters and he just wasn't capable. So hopefully that's not the same with this young man, but you just never know. I don't know.
Do you know his story about his dad being an arm wrestling champion?
I did not. That makes me think of that Stallone movie Over the Top, though.
That's right. He is like the number 1 for his weight class and a left-handed arm wrestling champion. He's number 1 ranked in the world. And he's a tough son of a bitch, and he's raised his son to have a tough as ass mentality. I mean, when the kid was 6 or 7 years old, he was already telling him, you're going to be a quarterback in the National Football League. So he's definitely groomed this guy to be a very dedicated athlete, great work ethic, leadership skills. And so it's a fascinating stories. I actually put up, the NFL Network did a feature on him before the draft, and I put up a 2-minute clip of that. He's really a guy that anyone that would see him being interviewed and see his life story, you got to root for the guy. And I'm rooting for the guy. And if he ends up being the number one quarterback for the Chicago Bears, he ends up playing better than Justin Fields. Applause. I'd hate to see that happen to my guy JF1, but if Tyson is better than him, let's do it, man. Let's have that competition. Hey, look,
if that would happen, he would be the next Tom Waddle. I mean, I know it's a different position, but Waddle went, from undrafted, unheralded guy that gets cut to a cult hero in the early 90s, and obviously that carried over, and he's great on radio now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that
I got to jump in here about my guy.
Okay.
Do you mind if I do a little?
No, go ahead.
My tribute to Tyson Bagent.
Go for it.
There's a Bears rookie QB who's played good. He's run the offense like a veteran would. He was a stranger to draft nerds. Played 2,000 snaps at Shepherd. Odds are he won't make it through waivers. Secret Bagent man, secret Bagent man. They're giving you a number that Chris Gardocki wore. Beware of veteran backups who hit their ceiling. Bears fans want the rookie, that's the feeling. Oh, be careful of PJ if Justin just can't play. Odds are Peterman won't save tomorrow. Secret Bagent man, secret Bagent man. They're giving you a number that Chris Gardocki wore.
Jesus. Well, Dan, what do you think? You want to comment on that?
Obviously, it was a playoff of Secret Agent Man.
Oh,
Speaking
really?
of Secret Agent Man, how about our friend Jeff Pearlman?
I just sent him a note. He might have dissed us. I don't know what's going on.
He sent me a private, and he said, "Hello, Dan," to me in private Twitter message.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Hello, sir," but that was it. So
there he is. Speaking of the devil.
There he is.
So sorry.
There's no way he was going to no-show us because we've talked to him before. Why would he?
Because he remembers.
That might be a reason to no-show you, but I'm back.
There you go.
Jared, so sorry about that. My bad.
No problem at all. We really, really, really love the fact that you're here. Dan and I know Santucci, who is backstage directing the show, we are huge fans of Winning Time, and we've read some of us have read most or all of your books. We're just huge fans of you, period. But this show, which HBO is under new management, is probably going to be counting the beans and making some tough decisions ahead. So wanted to get you on to talk a little bit about why this show should be preserved for the next 10 years of television making, and just your thoughts overall.
I love the show. I do, not just because it's based on a book I wrote, but because I feel like there's so many movies and TV shows that tackle sports and do it in a very unrealistic way, or do it in a really stupid way, or whatever, the sports scenes stink. They skimp on, whatever. And I love this show. I really do. I love the fact there's something I was talking about earlier today with someone, which was a nice drive, but I thought
What is going on here? What is going on? Why did that happen? Anyway, I'm sorry.
Must have had 2 solid quarters.
Where's this coming from?
I mean, but he was interesting.
Nothing goes right for the Bears.
Exactly. I have no idea where this is coming from.
Is that the ghost of Bob Avellini?
Your next book?
Yeah, maybe.
I'm sorry, Jeff. Please go.
It's all right. No, I feel like one thing that goes underspoken that I love about this show is if you look at the way Hollywood operates, far too often they take black actors, especially men, and they make them drug dealers, and they make them pimps, and they make them druggies, and they make them stupid jocks, and blah blah blah. And I feel like one thing I love about this show is giving the opportunity to a lot of young, hungry, talented African-American actors and actresses to play real roles in a real show, in an HBO show with a high viewership. And it's giving them a chance to be complex characters, not just one-dimensional nonsense BS. I mean, The Blind Side was recently in the news for the controversy about The Blind Side. I think about The Blind Side. They took a real story, they screwed it up. They made the one black kid, not just dirt poor, but dumb and in need of savior from a white woman. And the whole thing, and I hate that shit. I just hate that stuff. And I feel like this show, sorry to curse, and I feel like this show does the exact opposite. And I think there's some real value in that and real importance in that. And so I love this show. I love everything about it. And, it's been a joy for me.
Go ahead, Dan.
How many episodes are in season 2? Because we're down 3 already. And I was looking online last week after episode 2, and it was saying there were only 7. Is that correct?
7.
Well, it feels like we're going to, okay, so we just finished 81, all right? So they're going to win the championship again in 82, and I can't wait to, I think the show is doing a tremendous job building the friction between the team and Paul Westhead, which I really didn't know the story of why he was fired so quickly. I knew Magic was somewhat to blame for it, but I'm not a Lakers fan, so I just kind of had that tucked in the back of my head. So I'm really anticipating that story. But then you got Worthy coming in. They lose to Moses. Are any of these really covered before we lead up to 84?
I mean, they definitely skim over some stuff because they had fewer episodes this season. I'm not gonna lie. They do a lot. The thing about TV, it's funny. I was just on a different podcast, and they were like, "Do you feel like stuff is left out from your book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but a book is a 500-page. A book is 500 pages, and the one thing a book allows an author to do is go into detail, into granular detail. TV doesn't allow that." So you kind of have to make your choices, especially with an ensemble cast like this. We have so many characters. So there's a lot of Bird magic, the development of that rivalry. You saw in episode 3, the real development of Bird and sort of his, to me, I mean, one of the great moments in the show is Larry Bird showing up at Indiana State, playing in his jeans and work boots in a practice. Like I could watch that scene 100 times, which I probably have already. So they really focus a lot on Bird magic. A lot on the friction between Paul Westhead, Pat Riley, Magic. The rise of Pat Riley is really well done here. And then some things they don't do as much because you can only do so much in a limited amount of time. Just is what it is, TV.
But we're going to get Worthy soon, though, right? I mean, he's going to be represented.
He will be represented. I would say not quite as much as he is in the book. But, again, like you have to pick your poisons. Sometimes, have a season 3. Knock on wood. A lot of Worthy.
You've been praising the actors because I didn't know the full context. You were saying because of the strike, they can't promote the show.
Yeah.
And you were putting over the actors, and like you were saying, it's not just because I wrote the book, it's because I like the show and it has so much to offer. And I just wanted to say the actor, I don't know his name and I apologize for that, but my favorite actor on the show is the guy that plays Kareem. I think he's tremendous.
He's
Dr.
awesome.
Solomon Hughes, former center at Cal, like the starting center at Cal back in the day. Solomon's amazing. And I always say, if you want to go all-time great casting jobs, Magic, Kareem. If you think about how familiar we are with Magic and Kareem, and we know them so well, and you think who could possibly play Magic Johnson? Who could possibly play Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? And somehow they nailed those two. And neither guy, Quincy Isaiah plays Magic. He was a offensive lineman at Kalamazoo College. Wasn't even a basketball player in college. And Solomon Hughes, who's now 42 years old, college professor, PhD, played basketball at Cal. Also no professional acting credits before this. they just nailed it. And the other one is Bird. Like Sean Patrick Small was the second choice to play Bird. Bo Burnham was the comedian, took the job, then walked away from it. And I feel like that was a blessing because Sean is phenomenal as Larry Briggs, right?
Awesome.
So they just cast this thing. And it's funny because when my wife and I first were watching season 1, when like early on during the edits, we were getting the edits, and I saw Adrian Brody just as an example, and I was like, I don't know, like I don't know about that one. Like I don't think I see Pat Riley and Adrian Brody. And then we watched the full episode, and by the end, we were both like, oh, I get it. And now when I see Adrian Brody, I see Pat Riley. It's just.
Yeah.
They spare no expense here on this one.
Yeah. And the kid that plays Norm Nixon is
Oh.
the actual son of Norm Nixon. I got a 40-second clip here to share with everybody. It gives you a good taste of the tenor of this great, great show.
How do I feel about Magic Johnson coming back? Young buck.
Me?
Best record in the league since he been gone.
I'm just here to support Paul. Do I think you'll impact team chemistry? Do I look fucking nervous?
It's basketball, motherfucker. It ain't rocket science.
Can't wait.
Chemistry, my fucking ass.
Young buck.
You bet he's gonna impact chemistry. I mean, in a good way. Yes, the guys, they're thrilled.
What I say? I say the Magic back, baby.
That is so well done. And that is an acting right there. Every one of those actors was just doing a standout performance in that little vignette. Super stuff, man.
Yeah. Devon, who plays obviously Norm's son, is Norm's son, who plays Norm Nixon. He also was he was Whitney Houston's son in The Bodyguard. Like he was a child actor.
Oh,
so he
wow.
was
Look at
Spencer
that.
in The Bodyguard, and he was in a couple of other things. And he's a phenomenal. I'm not just saying this, like he's a great actor. Like he's not just an actor. That guy he's also in Snowfall right now. So he's in a lot of stuff. He's really good.
Excellent. Now, the show has gotten a lot of heat for the portrayal of Jerry West, and that the show has sort of made West seem to be very mercurial, always on edge. And in fact, Jerry West himself was not pleased with it. How do you see that whole debate regarding how Mr. West is portrayed?
I always say to the people on the show, like a lot of writers on the show don't really have that much experience in sports media and dealing with athletes. Like that's been my life. It hasn't been their life. And I think a lot of them were really taken aback. And I kind of said to them, I'm like, look, you got to understand where he's coming from. Like he's not involved with the show. He doesn't make a cent off of it. There's like an actor who looks like him playing him under the name Jerry West as a GM of the Lakers. Like he's allowed to be annoyed by that. And he's allowed to be pissed off. But I also think the number one thing I get on Twitter negative is, oh, you guys did Jerry West dirty. And I always say, read Jerry West's autobiography, West by West. Like it's a great book, but he speaks about his manic nature and his inability to watch a team and breaking a golf club in frustration. Like that's from him. So I actually think it's a really good portrayal. I also think Jason Clarke is one of the stars of that show. I just think he's phenomenal as Jerry West. I laugh half the time he's on there. So, I don't agree. I just don't agree.
Can I ask you about one thing I'm going to not necessarily recall the specifics, but the gist of it, because season 1 was, what, 2 years ago, a year ago? It's been a bit.
Last year.
Okay. Well, some time has passed, so I didn't retain it all perfectly. Yeah. But at the end, when Magic wins the title in 80 in Game 6 in Philly, when Kareem's out,
yeah,
the way the story went, and I didn't know this, so I was just going to ask you, was it a dramatization or was it accurate with the thing with the MVP between he and Kareem? Can you shed some light on that? Because I don't know the answer to it.
It might have been a little dramatized for TV.
Okay.
Might have been a lot dramatized for TV. Might have just been dramatized for TV.
Yeah. And Dan and I have had this discussion before that I feel like the filmmakers have no responsibility at all to make this a factually based show. Their responsibility is to put together the most entertaining 60-minute episode or so for what they're covering here. They're using your book, which is factually based. Everything in there has been, researched thoroughly by you, and I'm sure content experts have poured over it to make sure that there aren't any issues. And it's the producers the TV producer's job now to take that material and make it interesting for that medium of television. I'm betting you feel the same way.
Kind of, sort of, maybe. I'm somewhere in the middle. It's really interesting. I've said this before, talking about the show. Like, historically, I'm a terrible audience for sports content, TV and movies. Like Moneyball is a good example. Like, I was a baseball writer at Sports Illustrated when the A's were on the roll. I did a lot of A's that season. Moneyball makes it seem like Scott Hatteberg, led the A's to the championship, and there's really no mention of Mark Mulder, Barry Zito, Tim Hudson, Eric Chavez, Miguel Tejada. Like, and I feel mixed about that. I think, but I still love the movie. I think you have to have a guide. The guide has to be based in realism and in fact. So, like, you can't just have the Lakers. You can't have Magic Johnson traded to Denver just because it would add drama. Like, there has to be a base level of truth there. And then I think you can smush around stuff a little. Like, an example is season 1, episode 1. There was a white party that Magic and Norm Nixon went to, and they played one-on-one on a basketball court, and Norm Nixon kind of handed it to him. Now, that never happened, right? And I was kind of irked by that. And then I just started thinking about it and what they're trying to do. And what they're really trying to do is set up this relationship between Norm and Magic and set the stage for it. So I guess that's okay. Am I 100% comfortable with it as a journalist? I don't think I ever will be, but I realize it's a different medium than writing a book.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I've go ahead, Aldo, my bad.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with you. It does feel like you're cheating the audience a bit, but the intent is to capture the spirit of the relationship, and perhaps theatrically or dramatically, the best way to do that was to have that fabulous scene. It was a great scene with Nixon and Magic going at it at that party. Go ahead, Dan, please.
The only thing that I've complained about, and I love the show, so I'm not coming at like, oh, Jeff Pearlman, this is your fault. We're just like three guys talking right now. Pretend your book is not even connected to it. There's no malice here. The only thing I've complained about is like if the score of the game, like the score of the game has to be right. Or like if you're saying that Magic and Bird's first matchup was at the Forum, or it was in Boston, but it was actually at the Forum, that kind of thing bothers me. If the accuracy, and I don't know, you could correct me on this, because the 81 Rockets ultimately would go to the finals, lose to the Celtics. But did it end in a Magic air ball, or is that another dramatization?
No,
it did. Okay.
It did. And also, I will tell you, number one, I don't disagree with you. And I feel like for season 2, they were really more attuned to those criticisms, because season 2, I'm not just saying this, I swear, they were super hyper vigilant about getting those things right, like adhering to the nitty gritty much more than they did in season 1. I thought they did a good job in season 1. I thought they did a pretty extraordinary job, as you'll see in season 2, because I think a lot of people said that. And again, as a sports guy, as a journalist, I feel that. I can't argue with you, Dan.
But I do love the show, and maybe could I ask you? It's cut and dry in some aspect. Well, there's a strike, but is there? I mean, not that I'm trying to get you to solve a labor crisis here, but is there any foreseeable? Does HBO, for example, is there any way of quantifying what, or at least a projection of what they're looking for right now to try to continue the show, given that the actors can't promote it and no one? Like, I saw you. So many people have told you. And because I've retweeted you numerous times about like, hey, the show's on, and somebody will say, I didn't even know season 2 had begun yet.
Yeah.
Is it because it's summer? I don't know. It's like HBO sent me an email saying it was about to start, and I was excited about it. So what I'm trying to say is, how do we save the show? Is what I'm saying. What are they looking for?
Views, watch it so they can say, I'm being serious. Like every week, they look over how many people watch a show. First, they look over how many watch it on Sunday, which is less and less of an important figure than it used to be, because people just don't do appointment viewing anymore, except for sporting events, Yeah. And then the streaming numbers, which really matter. And then it all adds up. And then they'll say, well, how does this compare to last year? And what are we looking at? And I don't know what the figure is HBO is looking for. I don't know what they're thinking inside their offices. I do know that there's like someone told me recently that I mentioned this before, there's a movie that's supposed to come out later this year starring Zendaya. And whatever studio is with, they pushed it back to 2024 because Zendaya probably has 100 million Instagram followers and she can't promote it on Instagram. You're losing one of the best marketing tools in the world. Your star direct marketing it to her fans. And this show has a lot of big stars in it. and none of them can promote it to their fans. You can't have John C. Reilly or Adrian Brody or any of these guys out there promoting it. And that definitely has an impact on the visibility of the show. So that's a problem. Also, I've heard people complain about the HBO Max app, that it's not really, wasn't making, I think it is now fixed, that it wasn't making the show available. And I feel like that's fixed. And it's a great show, man. It's a great show. It is. And I'm telling you, really, if you met the actors involved, I'm not even talking about the older guys, I'm talking about the young men and women involved in the show. They're just the best. They're just like, they're such good people and true professionals, and just want to make a career out of this. And watch it. Supporting the show is supporting their careers.
You mentioned Bird earlier. I think giving him more context was good for the show as well, as opposed to you almost view him as the adversarial character to Magic, but now you can, not that most people are watching it, they're going to root for the Celtics perhaps, but still you can see his story too, and it gives him more color, if you will, in terms of we can choose sides now. He's not just the bad guy.
100%. And it's funny, I've been talking about this. The actor's name is Sean Patrick Small. It's his first big role. He still has a full-time job, actually. He kept a full-time job. He's 31. He has a baby, just had a baby. And he lives about an hour north of me in California. And a few weeks ago, he came down and he played in my pickup game. And he's younger than me by 20 years. He's a really good player, played high school ball. But his from working on the show, from training for the show, his shot has been completely altered, where he now shoots exactly like Larry Bird playing pickup basketball. Like he shoots like Bird. He just practiced and practiced and practiced as Larry Bird to the point where he became Larry Bird. So it's kind of weird playing basketball with Larry Bird, who was shooting like Larry Bird.
Was he good?
Very good. Very good. And a little bit of a trash talker too. So it worked.
What can you tell us about Hadley Robinson, who plays Jeannie Buss? And I think she's absolutely phenomenal as well.
She's great. So she's like, again, like she was in Little Women. She was in some films, but she's like from New Hampshire. Early on, a friend of mine, a former writer at Sports Illustrated named Alex Wolf, who was a really great writer when I was there, he either emailed me or called me and said, "Hey, my friend's daughter is in this show. Is that your show?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And her name's Hadley. And I'm like, "Who the hell is Hadley?" And it's like, wow, Hadley's actually awesome. Like, she's a great actress. And I think I really like the growth of Jeannie Buss in the show, and how you know, because we're watching it from the prism of 2023, seeing what Jeannie Buss actually became. And it's kind of like a superhero origin story, where you're seeing young Clark Kent or young Bruce Wayne, and this is young Jeannie Buss just fighting for her sort of place. I think Hadley's awesome. She's perfect.
Do you think that the ultimate goal, because if I recall correctly, the opening show, which again I haven't seen in a year plus, it started with Magic at the diagnosis of his medical problems. So is the ultimate goal in a perfect world to make it to, say, Jordan beating him in 91, and then the HIV press conference, is that the ultimate end if it's allowed to continue?
I mean, it's interesting because HBO bought the rights to my follow-up book, which is about the Shaq Kobe Lakers, with the hypothetical idea that you could take this series and then jump to Shaq Kobe. So, I mean, that's my ultimate ridiculous dream, but I think that's what they were thinking. So I don't know actually how because they haven't written more seasons, so I don't know what they're thinking about ending with Magic. But I would love, it's long shot, but I would love a Shaq Kobe continuation.
I would love to see, I know Aldo disagrees with me, but I'm a big fan of Isaiah. So I would love to see some 88, 89 Pistons Lakers in there too.
I used to hate Isaiah when I was a fan. I was a New Jersey Nets fan growing up, and Isaiah was just like him and Lambeer and Mahorn and Rodman. God, I hated those guys.
Awful people. I hope that this Winning Time series lasts for years, and I pray that when the series covers when Magic contacted HIV, because that would have to be one of the most dramatic sequences in any TV show ever, because I remember the press conference. Mm-hmm. I read so much about Magic's wife and the impact that it had on her and the relationship they had, and how he had to tell her what was going on. I mean, that I know I'll be crying when I watch that scene. I'm almost crying now just thinking of it. Boy, I really do hope. So do they contact you and ask for your help on how to lay out the 7-part, 8-part, 10-part season?
No, they have writers who are writer room writers. My main job has been I've been heavily involved this season, which has been kind of a joy and a treat, and they didn't have to do it. Like a lot of times an author's, book is bought and they send them some money and maybe they invite them to set once and that's it. And it's been the exact opposite. I go over every script. They ask my opinion on fact checking it all. Does this work? Does that work? They let me have input this year on casting. So I saw the demo reels for, Rambis and Worthy and Byron Scott and those guys, and they seem to actually value my input. So it's been, I play a reporter in episode 6 this year. My first real acting and probably last acting job. So that was cool.
You got a line?
I have 3 lines.
All right.
3 lines. It was one of the longest days of my life. I was super excited to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a scene with John C. Reilly, which is cool, and Adrian Brody. That's really cool. And I was super excited. And I got there very early in the morning on the Warner lot. And you get there and they have all this food, craft services. And you're like, holy crap, this food is all free. This is amazing. Sports Writer's Dream, free food. I'm eating my free food. And they put me in my wardrobe. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm dressed like an 80s reporter. And they gave me a wig and with sideburns. I literally have the sideburns hanging on my wall behind me and framed. And I walk out there to do the scene. It's a press conference scene. And they shot that fucking thing 104 times.
Wow.
104 times. It was, at first I had my lines written on my hand, not joking. I literally wrote them on my hand. And by the end, I just wanted to leave. I was so tired. It was so boring, and it's cool, but boring. And the craziest, worst part is the next day I woke up and my head was enormous. I had an allergic reaction to the wig glue and I had to go to urgent care because my head was swelling. So be careful, kids, because you may be damned to get you what you wish for.
Did you try to base your 80s reporter on someone specific?
Me thinking of how I behave as a reporter. I mean, they gave me lines, but I like little things like when I used to cover sport for Sports Illustrated, and still I always keep a pen behind my ear, right? So I always have a pen behind my ear. I always actually do have crap written on my hand. I have a notepad. I have stuff written in the notepad. I'm taking notes, but looking up. So I did do what I do. But it doesn't really shine through. It's just me being a crappy. But they do call me Jeff. He actually, if you watch it, episode 6, it says Jeff, and that's me.
So did you have to join the union? The union that okay.
I did not, which is good because if I did join the union, I wouldn't be able to promote the show.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, you could get a SAG card now, right? Since you had a line.
Maybe, but it actually costs a lot of money, and I'm not sure the benefits of it. So I mean, I don't want to be an actor. I have no interest in being an actor.
Yeah, I was a member of AFTRA and yeah, it's not worth it. But
I've got one more question.
I'm pro-union, but not worth it.
Yeah, I am too. Wait, I do want to say this is important. I've checked with everyone as far as promoting the show, and I've gotten not just the blessing, but the encouragement. Like I would not be doing this if either the writers or the actors are like, that's crossing, that's violating. Like somebody needs to speak for the show, and that I've kind of been one of the guys who's been allowed to do it. So I'm very pro-union. I think the actors need to be supported. I think it's ridiculous how the studios are treating them. So I'm 100% behind them. 100%.
Yep.
So I got actually 2 more things for you. If you got one, it was based upon something you said earlier that I would love for you to say again. But first off, on the accuracy thing, again, I'm not saying it's wrong. I don't know the answer. This is not rhetorical. Okay. The stuff with the game 1 victory in '84 and then the bus and the fans attack, was that dramatization or did that really happen?
Okay, good question. Everything with the bus was 100% on, and it's almost exactly how it's described.
Wow.
The only difference is I think it happened after game 4, not after game 1. So they made it for dramatic effect to start the thing, but the bus was attacked. It is as it is. Wow. I think they just might have. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a good scene. Very good scene.
Aldo and I both take a little bit of heat on here from some people because you could say we're aligned to the left. So your video earlier,
I love Trump.
Yeah, your video earlier is what I was hoping you could tell us about, and you're wearing the same shirt. So that was today, the Tampa shirt. So
yeah,
nice.
Man, I'm happy to. All right, so I'm from New York, right? I am from New York, and actually, I'm just gonna say it. I'm from New York, And 9/11, oh, you're giving me the big screen. And
That's right.
9/11 for me was very personal. We lived not far away. We lived in Union Square. So for weeks and weeks after, this is not exaggeration, you would smell the rubble. I still vividly remember all over signs, posts everywhere are the photos looking for, missing, have you seen, everywhere, all over. And the city was just in this stupor. And I lived near Union Square Park, where people would gather every night and just pray or sing or whatever you could do. It's like, what do you do? And a good friend of mine lost his son in 9/11. Tyler Ugelin was his name. He was a basketball player at Columbia. And the thing that always gets me, and I just don't understand why people overlook this, is in the aftermath of 9/11, number one, Donald Trump lied and said he saw the second plane hit from the window of Trump Tower, which would be actually physically impossible. Like, you can't, if you know New York City and you know where Trump Tower is, he wouldn't have been able to see that. It's impossible. Number two, he said that he sent 100 of his men to Ground Zero to help with the recovery. There's literally zero record of that. And there are very meticulous records kept on who came in to help. You couldn't just send 100 guys down. That is a lie. Number three, he said that he went down to help with the recovery effort. He said this repeatedly. There's zero record of Donald Trump helping with the recovery. There's a video of him doing an interview blocks away, but he never helped with the recovery. That's just a lie. There's zero record of it. And number four, he said in the aftermath that he donated $10,000 to the 9/11 fund. And the 9/11 fund has literally zero record of Donald Trump making a donation. And I've said this for years now. You cannot be a decent human being and just lie and lie and lie about 9/11, which happened in your home city, by the way, to make yourself the hero of that saga and to lie about that. To me, it speaks volumes about the lack of character of that creation of a human being.
Well, you're getting an argument from Dan and myself. I'm sure a number of people in the chat will disagree with you, but
there's nothing. Wait, I just want to say, Otto, there's nothing even to disagree with. Everything I said right there is 100% fact, and you can look it up. So there's nothing. Anyone in your chat room who's like you can say what you want about Trump, about Biden. There's nothing I said there that is incorrect or inaccurate. So.
Exactly.
Also, Jeff has a great book about how Trump fucked up the USFL. So if you want to watch Trump, go right and read that book too.
I love that book. By the way, speaking of books, your latest book is about Bo Jackson. I have it here. I have not started it yet. Tell us a little bit about what it is. What am I in store for when I start reading that later this fall?
I mean, greatest athlete of all time, I would argue. And I'm talking Jim Thorpe, Deion Sanders, LeBron, Michael Phelps, whoever you want to throw in there. And this is, my quick elevator pitch sell on Bo Jackson is when he was in high school, his senior year, he set the national record for home runs in a season with 20, right? He missed 7 games to run track and field, still set the single season national home run record. He won back-to-back junior and senior year Alabama state decathlon championships, both times without competing in the last event, the 1500, because he hated distance running. The second time he won the state decathlon championships, he did it in his sweatpants, the entire thing in his sweatpants, just because he was Bo Jackson. In his high school career, he stole 90 out of 91 bases, 90 out of 91. I tracked down the catcher who threw him out the one time. His name was Sam Doss. And he said Bo Jackson's next at bat, he hit a home run, crossed home plate, and winked at him. At Auburn, he ran a 4.13 40. A 4.13 at about 215 pounds. He signed with the Raiders in 1987, right? He hadn't played football in a while. Tom Flores was a coach of the Raiders. He has Bo Jackson run a 40 in pads on grass. He runs a 4.19. Tom Flores doesn't believe him, has the guy measure it off again, and he runs a 4.17. He's simply the greatest athlete. One more thing I'll tell you real quick. His first game ever in the major leagues, his debut, 1986, September call-up. Plays for the Kansas City Royals. His first hit as a major leaguer, first of all, it was against Steve Carlton, Hall of Famer. He beat out a ground ball to second base. And when they clocked it, all the scouts behind home plate, they all had him at 3.16 seconds, which was the second fastest time ever in his first at-bat, second fastest time in Major League history for a guy running home to first by a right-handed hitter. The only one ever clocked faster was Mickey Mantle. And after the game, when Bo Jackson was asked what it meant to him to get his first hit off Steve Carlton, he said, "Who is that?" And they're like, "That's the pitcher." He had no idea. He had never heard of Steve Carlton.
I love it. Go ahead, Dan.
He's got a Tampa shirt on, so I wanted to ask, what was the gist of Bo not wanting to go to Tampa? Was it because that they had struggled? Or, I mean, because you imagine they got Steve Young in this, what's the supplemental in 86. So if you have Steve Young and Bo Jackson, I mean, maybe the Orange Sickle Buccaneers are winning some Super Bowls.
First of all, I just want to say I'm not a Buccaneers fan. I just always thought the throwback Bruce the Bucko was kind of cool. And I loved Ricky Bell, the USC running back who went to Tampa Bay as a kid.
Sure.
The 2 second
terrible
story.
death.
But hey, Ricky Bell was great, man. Bo Jackson.
I mean, he had a terrible death. He died in like 83 or 4 is what I'm saying. It was horrible. Like if you read his condition, but go ahead.
If you Google my name and Ricky Bell, I wrote a long story about his death for SB Nation years ago. It's horrible. Truly horrible. Okay. True story. Bo Jackson is a senior at Auburn and he's playing baseball. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers convince him or his quote representative agent that it's okay for him to fly to Tampa Bay for the day to take a physical ahead of the NFL draft. They fly him in on his private jet. Hugh Culverhouse was the owner of the Bucs. He flies Bo Jackson to Tampa Bay. The Auburn baseball team has a game that night against Alabama Birmingham. The head coach at Auburn was Hal Baird. Bo Jackson isn't back during batting practice. Hal Baird says to someone, "Where's Bo?" And the player says, "Oh, he flew to Tampa Bay to get a physical." And Hal Baird says, "He did what?" He's like, "He flew to Tampa Bay on the Buccaneers jet to get a physical. He'll be back." So ultimately, that caused Bo to be ineligible for the rest of the year in baseball, right? And the best long thing of this is so he can't play baseball anymore. He's done. And Bo swears off the Buccaneers and says, "Don't draft me." Well, the NFL draft comes. The Buccaneers were idiots. Hugh Culverhouse, the owner, was a moron. He picks Bo Jackson number 1. And Bo's agents a few weeks later say, "You should fly to Tampa Bay and just meet with him, just talk with him. They want to wine and dine you, just go." So Hugh Culverhouse says to Steve Young was the quarterback of the 49ers, of the Buccaneers at the time. Culverhouse says, "Would you be willing to go out to dinner with Bo when he's here so we can talk and maybe try to woo him?" And Steve's like, "All right." Steve Young told me the story. They go out to dinner and Hugh Culverhouse does the old, "I'm going to leave you guys alone so you can talk." And he gets up and Bo Jackson turns to Steve Young and says, "Steve, just so you know, there's no fucking way I ever sign here."
Oh, jeez.
That was it. Yeah.
You know, and in the preface to the book, you share this great story of going through the airport and being stopped because you've got a brick in your briefcase. Can you share that story real quickly with us?
Yeah, wait, I have the brick.
Oh, look at this. Oh, man.
Hey, I don't know. Someone stole my brick, I think, but I had the brick.
Oh, no.
Why would anyone take the Bo Jackson brick? I don't know, but it was here somewhere.
I wish I had it.
I was in Bessemer, Alabama. I was in, wow, it's weird that my brick is gone, but maybe good. Bo Jackson lived in Bessemer, Alabama. He grew up in Bessemer, Alabama. And the house where he was a baby and a young boy is torn down. It's gone. It's just an empty field, but the foundation is there. And it's not like a historical landmark. It's literally a torn down house in a field with a bunch of broken glass. And I was like, I'm going to take a brick. I'm going to take a brick from the foundation of Bo Jackson's house. And I kind of dig it out. And I take it. I put it in my suitcase. And I go to Atlanta airport when I'm flying home. And I put it in my carry-on. And the guy at TSA says, "Sir, what is in your bag?" The rectangular object. I'm like, "It's a brick." He's like, "Sir, you can't fly with a brick." And I'm like, "Well, it's a brick from Bo Jackson's house. Do you know who Bo Jackson is?" "Oh, I know who Bo Jackson is." "Yeah, I'm writing a book." He's like, Marge, come over," whatever her name was. Marge comes over. "This man wants to fly with a brick, but it's Bo Jackson's brick." "Well, I'm writing a book on Bo, blah, blah, blah. And this whole back and forth. And finally she goes, "Fly with the brick." And now the brick.
I love it. I love it. The name of the book is The Last Folk Hero, The Life and Myth of Bo Jackson. And then now you're working on a new one on Tupac.
I am.
Your first, is this your first book outside the sports world?
It is. Very hard. Very challenging. But cool.
Yeah. When can we expect that to hit the bookshelves?
Sometime in 2025. I don't know exactly when yet. It's a long process. These things take forever.
I bet.
Do you have any thoughts on, after, I know you're working, you're immersing yourself in the Tupac book, but do you have any ideas of what you could possibly look at sports-wise next?
I'm thinking maybe the Rex Grossman biography. What do you guys think? That good?
Well, Zach has a story idea. Will Jeff write the story of an undrafted free agent Division II quarterback who takes the Chicago Bears to win the Super Bowl. Of course, that is Tyson Bagent, whose dad is an arm wrestling champion and played in an exhibition game for the Bears this past Saturday and looked like the second coming of Christ.
Wow. Sure. I'm in. No, I don't know yet. I honestly don't know. I got to get through Tupac and not lose my mind. So I don't know.
Well, good luck with that, and good luck. And if you ever need any assistance at all from any one of us here at the Barroom Network, you can count on us. We are huge fans of your work, your storytelling prowess, your books. I want to make sure I have in my library every Jeff Pearlman book. And although I'm not a big Tupac fan, I'm definitely going to purchase a couple of copies of that book because I got friends who are huge Tupac fans. That's a great choice for you.
It's nice of you to say this, considering 10 years ago when I wrote my Walter Payton book, your city wanted to kill me before they were.
That's where I was about to say. I was waiting to say, as Bear fans, we can say we're legitimate Jeff Pearlman fans because we like the Walter book.
The Walter book was not an anti-Bear or anti-Walter book. People just jumped to the gun very quickly on that thing. That might be the lowest moment of my career, is people being like, this guy and blah. And I'm like, read the book, read the book. And then I literally would have people call me or email me or whatever back in the day. I think Emery Moorhead, actually, the former Bear tight end, was like, oh, I read the book. You're kind of right, So, yeah, that was rough. That was a rough few weeks.
I mean, the anecdotes in it that are really powerful. I remember, like you saying that Mike Singletary looked at him and was like, man, you're a married man. How are you having all this sex? And that Walter carried a grudge against Mike for that. I mean, stuff like that we would never have known. I mean, and we're not trying to besmirch Walter. We all love Walter, but that context is extremely interesting.
And also, I just think, at least as a writer, I think our imperfections kind of make us, who we are. I don't want to just know that my favorite baseball player or singer or whatever never went to the bathroom and only ate healthy and lived a perfect life. Like, the imperfections and knowing that people have flaws and have struggles, it doesn't take away from Walter Payton's greatness. In a way, it adds to it. Like, he went through all this, he had his highs, he had his lows, but he still freaking did some amazing things. So that's how I look at these things.
Indeed, it's a great book, and I urge every Chicago Bear fan to have it in their library. Jeff, we'll let you go. Hopefully we'll talk down the line when you're accepting an Emmy or any kind of award that might be associated with Winning Time. A great HBO series. Urge everybody to check it out. Thank
you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right,
be well, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That was a ton of fun. Would you not say there, Mr. Dan Aguirre?
I think so. I didn't know the Bo Jackson story with Steve Young. That's, again, a good anecdote. I love it.
Yeah, very good anecdote. And you're right about that Donald Trump USFL book. That's a doozy. That one should be a movie too. I mean,
yeah, he basically just sabotaged the whole league. He kind of wanted to force an AFL NFL kind of merger at the USFL. He was at war with them. He couldn't get an NFL franchise. But then when they couldn't get a merger and stuff, at least the way I retained it, I mean, he was willing just to throw the whole league away and fuck everybody just out of his own, vindictiveness. And it kind of says a lot about him, in my opinion.
Truly does. Tooch, are you ready to join us? Give me a nod. Oh, he's ready. Let me put the right background up. Let's see what
now, is he going to Bear State of Affairs now, or could I say something maybe to lead into it?
Go ahead, Tooch.
Okay, I'd like to lead into Tooch. Let me tell Tooch this. He doesn't know this. I couldn't watch the Bears game live because I was at work. So I'm sure you probably touch on that. I tried to watch it after the fact, and they gave me the Colts announcers.
For you, Dan.
No, you can. I tried to watch it. I want to know more about it. They gave me the Colts announcers. Like, for example, when the Bears are on defense, they show the Bears offensive starters. And they're just talking like it's the Manning podcast and not even talking about the game. They just half-assed the whole game. So I feel like I didn't even see it. So anything you've got about the preseason game, I want to hear.
Yeah. All right. And I recorded the Chicago feed, but as I was working, I think it was yesterday, NFL Network was on. They did a replay of the game, and they cut out almost the entirety of Tyson's magic drive. It was a 17-play drive. There was only like 6 plays on it. I look up, oh, Tyson's got the ball inside the 10. He starts to drive. They go to a commercial, and all of a sudden I look up again, and the ball's in the end, in the red zone of the opposing team. I rewind to make sure I didn't miss anything, and during that commercial break, they just edited it out for time purposes. The most important drive of the entire game for either team. It's like, what's going on with the NFL? They're so screwy. Anyways, the stage is yours, Mr. Johnny Sanducci. Oh, you expect me to roll the open?
Oh, all right. You got it?
No, go ahead. If you. Oh, I see it. Okay.
Okay. All right. There, get that mute button unmuted. So happy about that. I got up before I roll. Does Dan McGuire have a Chris Gardocki jersey?
I do not, but I always thought we gave up on him too soon, and we didn't have to draft Todd Sauerbrunn, and we could have kept Gardocki and saved our second round pick for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Totally.
I can't. I know my guy Bajent is wearing 17, but can you think of another 17? I forgot what it was when
Sean
Aldo
Payton.
went.
Sean Payton, the square back for Sean Payton. How about Alshon Jeffrey? How about Anthony Miller? How about Tommy? What was his name? Tommy Barnhard, the punter that he was with the '87 Bears. Was that his name, Barnhard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Later, he played in the playoff game, and then we had Brian Wagner. But anyway, go ahead.
Alshon was 17. I forgot that. All right, Bears State of Affairs, off-season week 32. It's been 8 months since we've had NFL regular season or postseason football. What's happened in Barfly as well? The Bears played their second preseason game last weekend against the Colts, and they were 24-17 losers. Yeah, we went from high versus the Titans to low versus the Colts as the team gave up a 10-point second-half lead. And Tooch lost his Bears +5 bet. I was really angry about that. They lost by 7. That's a bit deflating, but hey, that's the preseason. We were in a high, we're in a low. And this game, though, there were several young players who stood out. Guys who are making strong cases to be on that 53-man roster. Along the defensive line, tackles Zach Pickens and Travis Bell are making plays. While second-round pick Gervon Dexter struggles to avoid being the last guy to move when the ball is snapped. Along the offensive line, center Doug Kramer's also been making his case for a roster spot. And one guy who's really making a name for himself, talking about this guy. Yeah, the rookie. Everyone loves a rookie. Yeah, undrafted free agent Tyson Bajent from Tiny Shepherd University in Dan Aguirre's backyard. This guy, he's been calm, cool, and collected under pressure. He's run the offense like a veteran, led the Bears on a 17-play, 92-yard touchdown drive against the Colts, which the barkeeper only caught about a third of those plays. Culminated in a short scramble in the end zone, a dive for a rushing score. And, he had Roschon Johnson open, but, he's got to show the team that he could scramble for that touchdown instead of hitting Roschon in the flat. And look, we all know that Chicago is a city that loves a backup quarterback. A guy who come in and rally a team or run the offense competently when necessary. From Steve Fuller to Mike Tomczak to Josh McCown, Bears fans love them some backup quarterbacks. In fact, Bajent has done well enough where fans are really worried that he won't make it through waivers. He's done well in spots, while a big-name free agent signing P.J. Walker has struggled. And did you know that Bajent owns the record for career touchdown passes at the NCAA level? 159 touchdown passes. And in 2021, like Dan Aguirre mentioned, he won the Harlan Hill Trophy, the D2 equivalent of the Heisman. And this preseason, Bajent has 18 for 20 for 113 yards and a rushing touchdown. Let's hope Tyson gets plenty of playing time to win a roster spot this weekend against the Bills when the Bears play their final preseason game. Moving on, the one thing that Dan, Aldo, and I have feared that could possibly affect this young Bears team negatively are the recent injuries along the Bears offensive line. Going into the offseason, the three of us generally agreed that the offensive line was the most important part, where a big upgrade was needed in both talent and depth. Now it looks like Tevin Jenkins will miss some significant time and is considered week to week. As well, first-round tackle Darnell Wright is also nursing an injury and is considered day to day. And veteran center Cody Whitehair has a hand injury and can't effectively snap the ball, although Bears fan Dan would like to say that he wasn't ever that good at snapping in the first place. He's been moved back to left guard. Other offensive linemen missing time recently were veteran free agent guard Nate Davis and center Lucas Patrick. All of these missing veterans has given young offensive linemen like Doug Kramer and Jatiri Carter a chance to shine. And the injury bug has even affected tight end Cole Kmet, who left practice on a cart today and did not return. One thing that could keep this young team from contending for a playoff spot is the dreaded injury bug. In other news, rumors were swirling about the possibility of Chiefs All-Pro defensive tackle Chris Jones possibly coming to Chicago. Man, I don't know. Let me just shoot that down. There's no way that Andy Reid will let a mediocre Chiefs defense lose its best defensive player. As much as we would all love that, we all know it ain't happening. And let's end on a happier note. Today it was announced that 85 Bears legend Steve McMichael will be a finalist for the 2024 Pro Football Hall of Fame. McMichael played 13 seasons with the Bears from 1981 to 1993. And if y'all remember, he appeared in a franchise record 191 straight games. Iron Man. Yet the fan favorite known as Mongo ranks second in team history with 92.5 sacks. McMichael helped the Bears win 6 division championships, and we all know it was an instrumental part of the 1985 Bears Super Bowl 20 championship defense that many consider to be the best in NFL history, and that is Bears State of Affairs.
Well done, Mr. Tooch. Santucci.
I've forgotten all that stuff about McMichael, man. Second in team history with 92.5. You know, 191 straight games, which at defensive, playing in the trenches as a defensive tackle, 191 straight games. That's like Cal Ripken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and he was still producing at the end. Like his last year at the Bears was 93. He had like 10 sacks that year. It's not like he was like just hanging around and was just still on the roster. The dude was still playing, man, and balling.
Yep.
Yeah, he really was. Let's all pray for Steve McMichael. Hopefully he's aware of what's going on around him. He's not in any pain, and that he can experience this induction into the Hall of Fame, which is clearly upon us. All right, given the time issue, I want to get to the media mashup, and then when this is about 25 minutes long, so on the other end, Tooch, Dan, and myself, and all of you fine folks in the chat room, comment on what you've heard, what you hear from the local media. I got 3 sound bites from WSCR 670 The Score, and 3 sequences, I should say, because they're not sound bites, from ESPN 1000. So we'll start that.
Although, before we go, can I just say that Jeff Pearlman was a great guest. I love that interview so much. I love Winning Time. And if Barflies have not watched Winning Time, it's so good, man. There's drama. It's funny. The acting is freaking amazing. The cast is amazing. It keeps you involved in the stories. There's so many stories going on, and it's never boring. So if you
totally agree with you. And I think I truly believe it is one of the best TV series on sports ever, and might be the best. I'd have to look at a list and pick that order. Maybe we can do that in the next show. Just talk about great TV sports series.
Well, let me ask you a quick question that'll set up the audio, because I'm assuming you got something about this. So if Whitehair goes back to left guard, are we looking at Lucas Patrick as the center, or are we talking about Doug Kramer as the center? Like, what's happening there? Do we have any insight?
I think that's a battle that will be determined. Patrick got some snaps yesterday at the center position, but today was withheld from practice. And Doug Kramer played in Saturday's game and looked good, according to many eyes. So that's a battle going on right there. But it does appear for sure that Cody Whitehair will be the left guard, at least for the month of September, while Tevin Jenkins is out. So without further ado, here comes the media mashup.
And then is able to lunge in for the score.
All right, he had a good drive. He did. He had a really good drive. And I don't know.
Being a little bit dismissive. He's been pretty good in the preseason.
Yes.
In both games, he's done something that has made you look.
But how did we go so quickly? Skipping all the other steps, 100 miles an hour, like, oh my God, they have to put him on the active roster right now or everybody else in the league is going to come take him away. And then what? What? What are we doing? What happened to us here? Why can't it be a nice story that a Division II quarterback, given an opportunity in a training camp, looks the part and can make some throws and maybe establishing himself as a developmental prospect? Isn't that okay?
Yes, that should be okay. But that's not what we do here for some reason.
Doing? Really?
We're doing deification. This is what we're doing.
We can never stop. We can't help ourselves.
It's true.
It was fun to watch.
It's been fun to watch, and I'm looking forward to him in the next game. And I think that it's incredible that he's played this well against what is better competition than what he was playing against by a factor of 10. And he's more than held his own. He's made good throws. He's made good decisions. Here's the thing. The people who fear losing Tyson Bagent, my question to you is, what is it that you actually fear here? Because what you're talking about, if everything goes right, is losing someone who eventually would be your backup quarterback. Because you're all in on Justin Fields, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you're telling me is that you're not okay with testing the waters of allowing him to go through waivers to see if he can be signed to your practice squad. And the thing is, like, oh, well, he's got to be on the active to be your third man. Right. They can play that game on Saturday night. He can be on the practice squad all week. And then they can decide whether or not the 45th dude or him is more important. And they can say, okay, now we're going to elevate him to the active, and he's going to be our emergency third quarterback. If that's what you want, if that's what you need. Less than half the league last year had 3 quarterbacks on a roster. I think that he would be a really interesting developmental project. The problem is that you already have one. And that's where all your resources and time goes. And honestly, to me, the best thing here's how I look at it, Dan. You could tell me if I'm wrong. I think that you have to look at your backup quarterback. I look at it as 2-2. If there are 4 games that your quarterback misses, can your backup quarterback go 2-2 in those games? Because that's all you should expect is for that person to go 500. if I were an NFL general manager or NFL head coach, would I want Tyson Bagent anywhere near a game that I needed to win? And the answer is not yet.
No,
it's not no.
Maybe someday.
It's not yet. But I'm intrigued enough to see a little bit more. The fact that we've already jumped ahead to the part where people are, well, this team will claim him. I think it's unlikely. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It's unlikely that he would be claimed.
We talk about the Tyson Bagent situation in full context, because I have some context I want to make sure I bring to it. Let's talk about how he looks as you've been watching him in 2 games playing quarterback. What does he look like to you as you're watching the man play quarterback, Gabe?
I think, when you're thinking about a second string quarterback for other NFL teams that come in and wow you, and then you're so envious as a Bears fan because something like that never happens, then you get to watch PJ Walker for a series or 2.
Woof.
You saw Nathan Peterman for the latter half of the game, and in between there was this sparkly, shiny, fun, professional quarterback that you saw, and you thought to yourself, yeah, when I watch good quarterbacks play, not saying, I'm not trying to put the praise, I'm just talking about, what we saw and the level of comfort, because that's really what it was. When you watch that and you try to figure out what is this that I'm seeing that makes me feel good about this situation, it's, oh, I picked up the blitz. I see the guy coming. I see the slot corner right there. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I'm going to throw the ball there on target to the wide receiver so that way, my lead receiver can block. That sounds great. I'm going to, with perfect timing, get up to the line and call a quarterback sneak, and I'm going to choose the side of which side of the center I'm going to run to so I can pick up the first down. Simple things like that. 3rd and 3, hitting the check down the right way. Again, it's just the way you felt about a Coach Eberflus last season where you're like, oh, finally, these all seem like the right decisions. It felt like that for that brief moment when you were watching him.
He's decisive. He has looked to me decisive on like quick slants and quick hitters, getting the ball out of the pocket fast to the primary receiver if he's open. So executing that kind of thing, which is like the basics of, game management and like carrying you through your system and what you're trying to do. He has also, though, looked very quick as he scrambles to his right, makes an accurate throw on the run a couple of times. And the ball, that it gets out on time and it's accurate. He hasn't thrown it very deep much. He had one deep throw against the Titans. He ran his way forwards into a sack at one point against the Colts, but he's looked very competent and very sure of himself. As Danny said last week, 31 of 32 teams went to his pro day. He was widely thought to be the best quarterback that didn't get drafted, so that means he's right on the edge of being a 6th or a 7th round quarterback. Luke Getsy fell for him at the Senior Bowl, where Getsy was his coach. So that's a big reason why he's even here. So Luke Getsy's got a connection with him. I don't think he's going to be a star, but I think he's going to last around this league as a backup. So here's what they got to decide, Gabe. Is he your 3rd string quarterback? Or are you going to carry 3? Last year, only 12 teams carried 3 quarterbacks in the NFL.
But isn't the rule different this year?
Here's what's different. The emergency quarterback rule means you can make one inactive on game day, but then they can play if somebody goes down. It's in reaction to what happened with the 49ers. But you have to have them on your 53-man roster. So it's still a decision of whether you carry 3 quarterbacks on your 53-man roster. And if you try to get them to the practice squad, some other team who's earlier in a rebuild or hates their quarterbacks can just grab him. So would Tyson Bagent make it to the practice squad, or would some other team snap him up after a fairly impressive preseason when he's got some of the credentials we've been discussing? I don't know.
Yeah, I can't imagine an NFL team is going to say, wow, did you catch that series and a half or 2? And I want to bring that guy in. Because a lot of people are so dead set on who they have. Like the Bears bringing in a Peterman. Right? Are there other quarterbacks out there last year that would have been better than him? Sure. But you feel comfortable with him. You feel as though he can run the offense or your offense. And I think the same would hold true. At least that's just me probably hoping in the event that no one takes him so that way he can end up on the practice squad.
Yeah.
Because he does look, When's the last time the Bears had a quarterback they drafted that you liked? I'm talking about in later rounds. That wasn't supposed to be outside of Justin Fields.
This feels like they found their Brock Purdy, somebody who's thoroughly functional. And maybe Brock Purdy is obviously a higher ceiling, but just like people do find guys, find quarterbacks who are like, oh yeah, that person could help me get through a game, could help me win a game and execute the offense if we have good runners and a good offensive line and good weapons.
The Bears' offensive line is a mash unit right now. We saw Darnell Wright get injured at practice yesterday. Now 5 of the top 6 on the depth chart dealing with injuries on that O-line. Eberflus has called Tevin Jenkins' injury a week-to-week issue, but reporting from Brad Biggs claims it could take into or through the month of September. My question for you is about this preseason finale. I know that we all kind of want to see Justin Fields get game reps in this preseason finale, but when you have 5 of your top 6 O-linemen going through injuries, shot or no shot, Fields does not need to play behind a second unit O-line in the finale.
That's a no shot because he's got to be ready for the Packer game, not just available. If that's going to be the offensive line he's got to deal with in 2 weeks when Green Bay rolls in here, 2 weeks from Sunday, he's got to play, man. How are we protecting that guy? Period.
I think that's fair to say that is an opportunity for him to be able to say 8 to 10 passes, 3 or 4 different opportunities with series against the Buffalo Bills because he's got to get himself ready. Look, the offensive line is never going to be fully intact for 17 weeks, and clearly there's some injuries there. We're not trying to say he should go out and get killed by the backup offensive lineman, but he does need some more time on the field. I'm sure that the plan was for him to play some against Buffalo, but now with the injuries, look, he's going to have to go out there with the 2s anyway, looks like, for the opener against Green Bay. So I would say that he should play some against Buffalo coming up.
I do hope the starters play more this week. I was surprised, I guess, then when you hear the explanation from the coaches about the great work at the joint practices. Okay, I guess I'd still like to see this first team offense get a little bit of run in the third preseason game. They did last year. Justin, I think, attempted about 15 passes, actually, in the third exhibition game last year. I hope that's the case this weekend. We won't know for a few days, though, is my guess. But one more to go before the lid lifter, and when it matters most, just under 3 weeks away now, with one final exhibition game against the Bills.
I was somewhat perplexed during the week when I heard.
Were you too?
Yeah. What are we doing here? This is the game that they get the reps, and then the next game is the one you rest them, and then you go into the regular season.
Maybe they play this
weekend.
That's what I thought.
We'll see. Don't know. I don't know what to expect. Whatever happens, happens. I think the battle for the number 2 position is a real battle.
I think it is too, Yurko.
I think the defensive tackles played better this week, 96 and 98. So they do something in the regular season.
I had that written down for you. The backup.
Pickens, and Dexter.
The backup thing here. They signed Walker because it seemed to make a lot of sense if you needed to use him if something were to happen to Justin where he'd miss games. There's probably a very almost seamless transition in terms of similar type skill sets, I guess you'd say. Do you think that they're a little stunned that Bajan is pushing as much as he is? Because he's been the better quarterback in camp, and he's been the much better quarterback in the exhibition season,
so the only thing you can judge anything on is what's happening.
Right.
And we get to see the games. So you judge things on what's happening in the games, in the exhibition games. And, both of the guys are playing against backups. Both of them are. So you get to judge them as how they're playing against backups. If they had their everything kind of etched in stone that Walker was going to be the second quarterback.
You think that
no longer is necessarily a guaranteed case.
They've stopped etching in the stone.
The
engraver was starting, and then they're like, whoa, wait a minute.
I mean, thank heavens they weren't working on the Claret Jug or something like that. Or, they crossed off names off the Stanley Cup.
Right.
A.K.A. Peter Pocklington.
Exactly.
But I think my point is, that now it's conversation because of the play on the field by Bajan.
Yeah.
He's the guy that forced the conversation. And it might only be a conversation of saying, hey, well, he looks like a halfway decent quarterback. It's hard to tell, but it looks like a pretty decent quarterback. But because the first guy has not played as well, P.J. Walker,
He struggled, man.
now it becomes a greater conversation and a bigger conversation.
I think you nailed that. That he's opened up their
and
eyes,
that's
I think,
it.
more than they ever thought he would.
Now there's
he
a
played
lot
like
of-
53 games in college, and I get it. It's a Division II school, but that's
Right.
a lot of football that he's played.
There's a
and-
lot of idiots in the world, and they're out there, and they've got Twitter handles. But there's a lot of idiots in the world that think because you compliment one quarterback, you take away from Justin Fields. The play of Bajan has nothing to do with Justin Fields.
right.
Justin Fields is the quarterback for the Chicago Bears.
Right.
He's
We're
your
talking about
starter.
the backup.
Talking about a backup.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
what it is.
Break glass
But
in case of emergency. Who's best suited for that?
But in this city, any compliment of another quarterback, for some reason or another, is taken as a threat upon Justin Fields.
That's silly.
Which might be some of the dumbest stuff I've ever read and or heard by some idiots that believe they're sports people.
That's silly.
So,
I mean,
well, it's okay. I laid it out the way it was.
Players who played this weekend, Yerk. Josh Allen, Tua, Mahomes played a lot. Daniel Jones, Bryce Young. You sort of expect Young and C.J. Stroud to play, right?
Keep going.
Players who didn't, in fairness. Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers. It sounds like Rodgers is going to play in the third preseason game. A surprise to some. Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott. To Yurko's point, I could keep going in both groups. There are more than one ways to do this. There's more than one ways to skin a cat. I get it. My preference would still be for the first team to play a little, because I think there is some value in getting in and out of the huddle and seeing some of the live ammo and getting used to the speed that really is never going to be replicated in what they do with their own practices and training camp. Maybe a little bit more in these joint practices. Is it still a game? Is it still a game?
Even with a truncated 3-game exhibition season, the final game for me is the one you rest your starters, because now you're almost to the regular season.
Now they'll be 2 weeks away.
Yeah, if you were being cautious, you wanted to be cautious, this is the time to be cautious. So for me, it would make sense for the offense and a lot of the key players not to play in this game, because you're right there.
You
You're
okay
on
if
the
they
cusp.
do?
Who?
Are you okay if they do?
I've got no problem if they do.
Okay.
I would just think this is the one you want to rest them. Why the second one? Makes no sense.
Okay.
Whatever time he needs, his safety most important. Do you believe the line issues will prevent him from playing against Buffalo?
I don't know. It's worth thinking about. To me, if you've got one lineman that's going to be out, and you don't play him against the Bills because of that, then doesn't say a whole lot about the work you've done throughout the off season and training camp to build some depth behind one guy. You know what I'm saying? Like if you've got 2-3 linemen that are out, okay, I think that's time to sit down and have a discussion and figure out, what the football team needs and what's best in that situation. But if you're talking about just having one lineman down, and then that's going to change the trajectory of what you were doing for your plans, then you probably have failed in terms of creating some depth. What's Flus always say? They talk about having a spare and a pair, or a pair and a spare. I don't know which order he puts them in, but he's talking about having depth and backups across the board, guys that are versatile and can fill in multiple roles. So if Tevin Jenkins is the only starter that's not going to be available, and based on that you don't play Fields, you're probably condemning what you've got behind Tevin Jenkins, I would think.
But Darnell Wright limps off of practice. Don't know the extent of that injury. Nate Davis still being ramped up. Cody Whitehair apparently has a hand injury, Brad. I wonder if that will compel Matt Eberflus not to play Justin Fields. And if he doesn't, how much confidence would you have, or would it be shaken at all by the fact that Justin Fields will go into the regular season with 7 preseason snaps?
Yeah, well, it's one of those deals where they will. What you'll hear from them, I would expect, would be, all the great work they got done in training camp all summer. How everything was on pace, that they hit everything they wanted to accomplish. But there's reason they have these games. There's reason. I wrote it last week, and some people just wanted to completely dismiss it. But there's a reason Andy Reid plays Patrick Mahomes, and by doing so does what? Well, he exposes the best quarterback in the world to the possibility of injury in a meaningless game. But he does so because Andy Reid, who will be in the Hall of Fame one day, finds value for Mahomes and the other starters taking snaps in exhibition games. So is it something that could come back to bite the Bears in Week 1 against Green Bay if the starters don't go? I don't know. To me, there would be probably bigger issues involved there if they come out and do not perform well. But I thought coming out of Indianapolis, it looked to me like the plan was going to be to definitely play the starters against the Buffalo Bills, maybe into the second quarter, give them a good run, which is what they did a year ago when they closed up preseason over in Cleveland. So we'll have to see. Hopefully the right thing is super minor, right? I mean, I'd start there. Eberflus seems to believe that the white hair hand issue is not a big deal, and they're ramping Lucas Patrick up, and Nate Davis is doing a little more each day. So hopefully it's headed the right direction. But, guys, Tremaine Edmonds was day-to-day, and, in him being day-to-day, and we're not talking about a lineman, we're talking about a linebacker, but he was out 18 days. Like, Edmonds returned to practice yesterday. That's the first time we'd seen him on the practice field since August 4th. So day-to-day can be stretched out by Eberflus, that's for sure.
How would you try to mix the two, getting your guys enough work, but also mitigating the risk of injury at the same time?
Well, to me, football players are paid to play football. I did Pittsburgh's training camp. Mike Tomlin has those guys trained that any time that they have the pads on, they are full go. Everybody is live. They tackle to the ground. And that's why they bring a level of physicality that nobody's ready for at the beginning of the year. Look how they took down Cincinnati Week 1 and picked off Joe Burrow 4 times. So Pittsburgh, in my opinion, Mike Tomlin, those guys are like old school football. When the pads are on, we're out here to get better. You're going to hit, you're going to tackle. Everything's technique, and it is very physical. And that's how you get better playing football. You got to play it at some point.
It's interesting you mentioned that because at the Week 1, the Bears have the Green Bay Packers in town, and this is a great opportunity for our Chicago Bears to make a statement in Week 1. And it sounds like your concern would be it's not a given that they won't be ready to play, but maybe they won't be as ready to play because of the lack of reps in game situations.
Yeah, think of the defense. They haven't had, even in this game, I talked to Alan Williams, the defensive coordinator. At all levels, they haven't been out there as a unit. Edmonds has not really practiced, right? Yeah, it's fine. He's doing the walkthroughs and all that, but at some point, you got to do it full speed. Eddie Jackson was down. Walker hasn't been in there. And so as a unit, as a whole, how much have they actually done together? You just wonder if they're going to be gelled together as a full unit on both sides of the ball.
Former Bears quarterback Jim Miller joining us. He does, of course, all the preseason games on Fox on the hometown call for the Bears. It's Waddle and Sylvie on ESPN 1000. The one thing that has bothered me, Jim, and I talked to Thayer about this on the radio pregame show here on ESPN 1000, is the notion that September is a ramp-up period. I get it for Kansas City. I get it for Cincy. I get it for Buffalo. For the teams that can't afford a couple of games slip up, who will make the playoffs and will peak at the right time to get to the Super Bowl. But like Waddle was just saying with the Bears, you're setting a culture, the division's wide open, you're playing your rival. I want them ready on September 10th. I don't want September to be a feel-out month.
Yeah, I totally agree. Week 1 is a division opponent. You win the division, you get to the playoffs. That's how it's always gone in the NFL. So the goal needs to be to win the division. In Week 1, you got a division opponent, a rivalry, nonetheless, one of the most historic rivalries in football. Yeah, you better be ready to roll, in my opinion.
As a former quarterback, Jim, give us your input or your take on what you're expecting to see from Justin this year, what he needs to do to get better, to take that next step.
I think for him, it's about processing the information. You know, he's got to get the ball out of his hand. I think we know the 55 sacks he sustained last year, it's unacceptable. That's not all on the offensive line. You know, that's on him to be able to process the information, get the ball out of his hands. I think a modest goal for him, he's got to cut his fumbles in half, right? He had 16 fumbles last year where the ball was on the ground. The interceptions need to go down because that's too many turnovers overall. And I just think for him, you know, he needs to be about minimum 3,500 yards passing. I think we know 2,300 yards or 2,400 that he threw for last year is not enough. You know, the running game, I think, can be just as good as what it was a year ago, but I think the play-action pass game off of it has to be much better. And that's certainly a lot on Justin Fields to get the ball out of his hand.
I can't hear you, Aldo.
I muted myself. Sorry. I was telling Zach that I really like putting those together. It gives me an opportunity to check in on Chicago sports radio, and because I always got the headphones on. I'm editing something, and so to put that segment together, it takes a few hours, but it's fun. I you know, a lot of people are critical of Chicago sports radio, but I at least find it entertaining. I think there's some talented people there who have some good opinions. They get good guests and so forth. I don't mind sitting through it. I mean, sitting through it in that highlight version is a lot easier than sitting it when you're in your car and they're going to a commercial break every 12 minutes. It's like, so the podcast format is the way to go.
The graphics are so good on that. I hope people realize like all those graphics on that mashup.
Thank you.
Like the fonts, and they're flashing. Then you got the cool laser going around. Yeah,
little eye candy, as they say.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of any particular opinion shared there regarding playing the starters or anything that you guys want to comment on?
Do you mind if I go first, Danny?
No, go ahead.
All right. Two of the dumbest smart guys, Bernstein and Holmes. It's like the Bears could take a page out. This is they can't find a reason for why, you know, the Bears should keep Tyson Bagent. But you know, the Bears could take a page out of the Packers playbook and develop young quarterbacks and flip them later for draft picks. You know, like the Packers did that. I don't know how long they did that for. You know, or develop into a starter in case, you know, either Fields doesn't resign with the Bears, or I mean, career-ending injuries happen all the time. I mean, Tariq Cohen, who incidentally is trying to make a comeback, you know, while the Bears are trying to find a punt returner, had almost a career-ending injury.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he was a Bears player. How many times have we heard Bears GM say, "We need to draft, or we should draft a quarterback every year"? You know, because you never know. Either they turn into a competent backup, they turn into someone another team comes and said, "I'll give you a second-round pick for, or third-round pick, or fourth-round pick, or anything." You know, because teams aren't going to come around and offer you much for Nathan Peterman or PJ Walker. You know, if you get to the end of the season, you could trade those guys away. You know, they're not going to give you much, but they might give you something for Tyson Bagent if he develops into something maybe in a couple of years. That's why you keep a guy like that.
Go ahead, Dan.
I don't want to sound like I don't have a problem with the guy. I think it's a little fast for everyone to think that I agree with you. I pointed out what Greg said because I thought, well, man, is that the consensus amongst people, you know, because Greg knows people, right? You know, he worked in the front office. Is this the pulse of what others are thinking, that he's someone that is viable? And not to say he isn't, but I think we'd have to see more on Saturday before we can make that determination. I mean, what if he goes out there Saturday and throws a pick? Even if he does, that doesn't mean he's not going to be any good. But then everyone will go the other way and say, he's not going to be any good. He threw a pick, and hey, PJ Walker led a scoring drive. That's my guy. Sometimes we get a little bit, we flip-flop too much. And I'll put myself in there too.
Yep.
So I'm not any better.
I mean, we're just talking about this point in time, Dan. Like you said, just at this point in time, like between now and the next preseason game, he could either light it on fire or he could, like you said, fall on his face. We're just talking about at this point in time where he's looked better than the guy they signed for $4 million.
Well, the good thing for this gentleman is his future is in front of him. He has an opportunity that most people don't get. You know, I mean, all of us are fans, and he's worked his ass off to get this opportunity. I'm sure he deserves it. There are a lot of people that still deserved it, didn't get it. So he's got a chance to make his future. And so as a human being and a Bears fan, I'm rooting for him. So, hey, I hope next week we come on here and say, we can't cut him. What are we talking about? If we do cut him, he is definitely, like, make us not want him to make us advocate for him. Make us pound the desk and say, motherfucker, we can't cut him. Let's see it. See it against Buffalo. I
mean, if you look at it from, like, Aldo and I, as long-suffering Bears fans, we never have as Bears fans, we never have good quarterbacks. Now we've got Justin Fields. Now, it looks like fortune's turning. We've got Fields who can do amazing things on the foul. Now we find this undrafted kid who might be a competent backup or someone you can develop. Like I said, flip for a draft pick later. It's like for years we had nothing at quarterback. That's why fans are excited about the kid. Poles went out and signed P.J. Walker. Said, okay, I could see that. Yet Nathan Peterman, there wasn't much fanfare for a Nathan Peterman, even though he's probably great in the quarterback room. He's probably great on the sidelines. He's probably, when Fields comes off the field and sits down on the bench, he's got the iPad. He could show him, hey, this is what I saw. That's why you keep a Nathan Peterman around. A guy come in and makes the plays too. If something happens for whatever reason, he's got to come in for a series or two. But
it feels like to me there's always one of these guys. It's usually not quarterback, to be fair, because the Bears haven't had a lot of success at quarterback. But there's always like Mike Hass or Tyler Gentry. What was his name? Something Gentry. Taylor Gentry.
Tanner
Gentry. Yeah. There's always a guy like that in camp it looks like, oh, he's going to be a star. And then Gentry did get active a little bit in the regular season, and he fell on his face. So I'm not saying that this guy isn't going to be any good, but again, I just feel reluctant to champion him right now.
Let me ask you guys this question, because this is, an important part of considering what we're going to do with Tyson. And that is, do you want to carry 3 quarterbacks in your 53-man roster? Do you think that with the injury situation that it would be better to carry 2 quarterbacks? Like I think it was Holmes said, half the teams in the league had more than half the teams in the league had 2 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster. So let's start there. I'll start with you, Tooch. Do you think that we should have 3 or 2 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster?
Well, for me, it would be 3 because it's the most important position in sports. But I seem to have the back of my head there being a rule about keeping an emergency quarterback on the roster. I'm not sure whether that's a player that's from the taxi squad and can be.
That would, exactly. So that would be that quarterback has to be on the 53-man roster in order for him to be an emergency quarterback.
Right, and he could be inactive but play in the game. Is that right?
Exactly. Okay. So if you are down your 2 starting quarterbacks and there is absolutely no question that they cannot return to play, then the NFL this year has started this new rule where that 3rd quarterback that has stress for that game can enter the game. They're calling it the Brock Purdy rule because when Brock got hurt, there was like nobody to play quarterback for the 49ers.
For me, it would be 3 quarterbacks because you hate to be in the situation where both your quarterbacks get injured in a game and you got nothing.
What do you think, Dan?
Well, the idea that he could be in street clothes in the first quarter and then, oh, shit, our 2 quarterbacks have gotten hurt, so we can get him dressed real quick in the fourth quarter, that is appealing. So he doesn't have to be active. He could be one of your 53, but you can only dress, 40, how many is it, 46?
48.
48?
46, I thought, but it could be 48. It's hard to keep track.
You get the point, though. He doesn't have to be initially one of the ones dressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that, in the event that because injuries happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just happens, and like the San Francisco thing encapsulated that, which should have been something that everyone was cognizant of anyway, going to a championship game. I remember that day I didn't watch the game. I was at a movie. I was at that Cronenberg Sons movie.
Infinity Pool.
Yeah, Infinity Pool. And I watched the AFC title game, but I was like, why isn't Garoppolo active? I mean, what happens if, I'm not going to say I jinxed him, but like they could have had Jimmy G right there in the wings, but they just put all their eggs under Brock Purdy, and you saw what happened.
Indeed. I think, this season, if they really believe that Tyson is a guy that you need to keep on the roster to develop, then you have to keep 3 quarterbacks, because you want the second stringer to have some NFL experience. Now, if they choose to start Tyson in week 3 of the exhibition season, and he goes out there and throws 3 touchdown passes, I'm like,
You
okay,
can't cut him.
yeah, you can't cut him. No, he's your number 2 quarterback. He's your number 2. You drop Peterman and put PJ Walker in the practice squad, or whatever combination, and eating Walker's $2 million salary, that's not the end of the world. But if he goes out there, the one like when I look at that drive is just how much he looks like a quarterback. And when you hear him talk, he sounds like a quarterback. He says all the right things. He's got leadership skills. He's got a strong arm. He's got awareness. His accuracy was on point. He was throwing accurate balls with the exception of that one incompletion. So it's all very, very promising. But as Luke Getsy said, you also have to factor in what he's done in practice. Because if he's been inaccurate in practice, because if he has been slow to pick up the playbook, if other things have gone wrong during those periods where we have not had our eyes on him, then he can't be the backup quarterback. That's for sure. He's either a practice squad player or the number 3 quarterback on Sundays.
What do you do if Peterman lights it up Saturday? Like, seriously, what if Peterman throws for 300 yards or something? Then you're like, oh, shit. I mean, it's a good problem to have.
To
Absolutely.
me, the top 3 guys are Fields, obviously, and Peterman and Bajan. I mean, Peterman obviously has experience in the West Coast offense, which by all accounts is the most difficult offensive system for a quarterback to learn. I mean, a voluminous playbook, terminology that's probably something that, young quarterbacks aren't familiar with. But Peterman, he's been in systems like that. He's like, this is his 7th year in the NFL or 6th year in the NFL. He's been in a few West Coast offense systems. PJ Walker's with the Panthers. They don't run a West Coast offense. By all accounts, maybe he's struggling with the playbook a little bit, just like Fields did when he first got to the Bears.
Absolutely. It's a big undertaking, learning that playbook and learning the terminology and so forth. Another interesting battle that is brewing is at the running back position between Rashawn Johnson, Deontay Foreman, and Khalil Herbert. Where are the snaps going to go? That's got to be a tough one.
They all look good to me, man.
They do.
I love it.
Do. And then when you heard Foreman, if you heard Foreman in his press conference today, he sounded less than happy that he hasn't gotten more than the 17 snaps he's gotten in 2 preseason games. He wants to showcase what he can do, and he said it'll take more snaps than I've been getting.
Can I ask you a question about Foreman? So do you think because I didn't know this about him. I mean, I wonder if it's the Bears, because Foreman's a guy with an injury history. No doubt about it. He just broke out last year, and he's been in the league 4 or 5 years. He's been injured.
Very true.
But it's either the Bears protecting him, or he wants to show people I might get cut. I want people to know I can still play.
Yeah.
I don't know which is which, but to me he looked pretty darn good. He was catching the ball. He looked fast. He looked strong. So I mean, to have 3 good running backs, I'm really happy.
And then you got Travis Homer, who is an excellent pass blocker. So he factors on getting some 3rd down looks and a really good special teams player. So they're going to have 4 guys on that 53-man roster.
Yep.
And, or maybe, you get a call from a team that is desperate for a running back and they've got a 5th or 6th round pick for Deontay Foreman. Who knows? It could happen. What do you think, Dan?
It's interesting to me. Now, again, that second game was so horrendous for me with the Colts, just terrible announcers. I felt like I was watching a minor league baseball game. I mean, I'm not just saying that because it was the other team. They were fucking terrible. So I don't think I saw Khalil Herbert Saturday, but maybe I'm wrong. Who the fuck knows? I don't think I saw him play. So
he didn't play. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I've seen Herbert but active, but like 5 plays then, like 1 drive. So and he took it to the house, and I don't think I've seen him since. So having said that, it seems to me if they're not playing Herbert at all, he's probably the unquestioned starter.
Yeah.
So maybe Foreman knows that and is like, man, fuck that. I'm better than this dude. Like, why am I not getting more chances to prove it? Maybe he feels like he's being held down. I don't know. I can't speak to it mentally, but it seems to me if Herbert is not even getting in there to show that he can pick up the blitz now, they must believe in him and think that he's the number 1 guy.
Yeah, that's interesting because I do think that there's been a very concerted effort to help Herbert with his pass blocking, and so only time will tell. Only a game time situation will tell. But if he doesn't pull his weight with pass blocking, even Roshan Johnson looks pretty good at pass blocking. That kid is so versatile; he can do just about anything. I love this running back room. It's one of my favorites since I'm a big fan of Matt Forte. I know Dan is, and I don't know. Do you like Matt Forte?
Oh yeah, love Matt Forte.
Yeah, modern 21st century running back. I love him.
Can't remember how many times I saw the back of his jersey running away from guys.
Yeah.
Break off long runs. 22 Forte.
Oh, that one cut that he has downfield, and he's already like 10 yards downfield. He makes that cut, and nobody could touch him. Yep. Dan, you want to share some hatred towards Matt Forte?
I don't hate Matt Forte. I felt that he was overloved because, if it's 3rd and 2, there's a reason we were bringing in Chester Taylor or Michael Bush. Like somebody else had to carry the ball there. He wasn't going to pound it up the middle. And most of my recollection of Matt Forte making breakaway runs was a result of a screen pass. It wasn't him running the ball. He was like a Marshall Faulk type. He's going to catch a wheel route or a screen and then take it, which again is great. I mean, he could break plays. I give him that, but I just felt like I like a back, whether it's Walter or, I'll always bring up LeGarrette Blount. I always liked him, or John Riggins. Somebody you can hand the ball and they fucking run somebody over and get your 3rd and 1. I don't think Forte was that player.
Okay. 20 guys did not practice today for the Bears. 20. Deontay Foreman was asked about injuries and whether he was concerned.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, of course, but those. I mean, I see the work that those guys put in, on a daily basis, even though they're not on the field. I see the hard work that they're doing off the field. So, very hopeful and that those guys will be ready to go when it's time to go.
God, do you know who he looks like to me?
No, who?
In the younger version of him, not now as a grown man now, but I'll just say his character name. He looks like Theo Huxtable.
I see that. Yes.
Malcolm Jamal Warner when he was on the Cosby Show.
That is right. I see Malcolm Jamal Warner pop up every now and then on a TV show in a guest role or something like that. So he's still out there acting.
He's still getting gigs, yeah.
Yeah, he's good. He's good at what he does. J2K says, what I loved about Forte was that he consistently hit the weak side shoulder of the defender and picked up extra yards. Yeah. Forte is a good player. I wish he wasn't so sensitive on social media, though. Did he stop following you then?
Yeah, another guy that they brought in because of his deficiencies in what I was saying was Marion Barber. Of course, we know what happened in Denver, and he's passed on, so I don't want to kick him. But again, every year they were trying to sign a guy that could do what he couldn't do. And what he couldn't do is the reason that I thought he wasn't a complete back. I don't mean that he wasn't good.
Yeah. Well, we got about 10 minutes left. Any final thoughts on the Bears? Because I do want to get this.
I do have one question. I know the Bears have the #1 waiver priority. Could they waive Badgett and then just claim him right away? I know they can't.
I know they can't. But... you and I think alike because that thought actually ran through my head.
I wanted to touch on something Tooch said in his State of Affairs.
Please.
the Chris Jones thing probably could happen if the part with one of those number ones, which I don't want them to do.
Yep.
But I'm sure if they called KC and said you could have one of our 2 number 1 picks, this motherfucker would be starting against Green Bay. I mean, I think they would trade him for it first.
Yeah, Jordan Love wouldn't have that good of a game if he was starting for us that first game. But.
Well, I don't want to do. I think we need to get another lineman in here. I don't. From what I saw, it looked like Leatherwood was doing okay again.
Yeah,
I saw Carter give up a sack at one point at right guard, but I couldn't follow what was going on. I felt like I had attention deficit disorder because those fucking announcers were just so dreadful. And they weren't really focusing on the game or watching it. They were acting like this was no fucking big deal. Like they were watching a fucking game at a sandlot.
Yeah.
They were so unprofessional.
They should take a look at Dalton Risner, who's still out there, free agent guard. If we're going to have, a highly graded.
I talked to Greg about him, and I love Dalton. I met him at the Senior Bowl, interviewed him, and immediately after the game, I said, dude, you play with an attitude out there. And he started laughing and stuff. But Greg says that he doesn't have the athleticism to fit into this line. Now, he's not ruling it completely out because the Bears feel that they're in a dire situation and they can sign Dalton to a 1-year contract as a stopgap.
Yeah.
Then he might be a solution, just like Jason Peters was. But I got a feeling that Dalton is still holding out because he wants a multi-year contract. And, and I'm shocked that he's still available, to be honest with you, because he is a good player. All right, let's shift gears here. Silo. Tooch said, watch Silo.
I really liked
Silo. It. Oh, my
God. The last episode ending was just like...
Oh, mind-blowing.
I was like, whoa. Because you couldn't figure out like what was going on when they leave the silo. It's like,
right.
What the heck? What is
well,
happening?
Don't give anything away.
Yeah, I'm not going to give anything away. Yeah.
But here is a teaser that does a really good job of explaining the plot line.
Yep.
We do not know how long we have been underground or who built the silo. We do not know why there is no life outside the silo. We only know that here is safe, and there is not.
Have you ever noticed anything strange about the silo?
Some mysteries are best left unsolved.
What's the big question?
What if everything you know to be true was one big lie?
What do you think, Dan? Are you intrigued?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem bad. I don't think I'm going to be able to take on a new show right now with football season being cranked up, Yeah. But I bet it's a good show from what I can gather.
Really, really is. I watched it on Tooch's recommendation, and a couple other people said it was good. And my wife and we started watching it like on a Saturday night at 6 p.m. And
you went through like a few episodes Saturday?
No, we watched them all. Yes. So we were up to 3 o'clock in the morning. The last 4 or 5, 45 minutes each. Yeah, we had a great time. And for her to stay up and watch a show that late, because she's usually in bed by 9:30, she was really, really into it. And the writing is great. The acting is great. The cast, the way the silo looks, all of those things, brilliant production design. Really
so I got to tell you, so the silo, I mean, obviously there's probably some kind of green screen stuff, but it looks so big inside.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of levels. It could take a couple days to walk from the top to the bottom, or vice versa. They say in the show and stuff. And it's like decided. It's like uniquely like retro looking. You know, the computer terminals are old. It's kind of like the rooms are round. You know, like rounded in the back and stuff. And they're like, you know, the stark concrete, and the tools are like old and worn and stuff.
Yep.
It's really cool, man. It's a good show, and I spent most of that time because I was watching. I had to wait until it would come out like Wednesday. I didn't have the advantage of binging it. So I was kind of like, what happened the last week? Okay, all right. So it's probably better when you binge watch it. But I was spend the whole time was like, gosh, I can't figure out like what happens like here and there, you know, like I was like speculating about all these things. What the hell is it? Something, you know, are they doing this?
Exactly.
You know, and Common does a really good job as kind of like a bad guy. Tim Robbins is great. You got Tim Robbins, man, one of the really great actor.
Yeah,
you know? And Rebecca Ferguson is great.
Yeah, I'd never seen her before. She's a British actress. She's got the lead in that
Mission Impossible movie. She was like Ilsa or whatever. Elsa.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Kind of pseudo love interest of Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm. Dan, have you seen anything before football season? Have you jammed anything?
Yeah, there's two things I would love to see if you had watched from a couple weeks ago that I've mentioned her on the show before. I'm a big fan of the actress. And it's purely sexual. Not to say that she isn't talented. Annabella Ciara.
Oh, yes.
Again, she was Gloria on The Sopranos. She was in Jungle Fever, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, etc. Mm-hmm. But I saw two films of hers because one night I was home and I had nothing going on. And I was like, I just was looking through her filmography. And two old films, I'm like, how did I miss these? And I watched them, and man, I still said, how did I not know these? One of them from 93. Great cast here. It's called Romeo is Burning. Or I'm sorry, Romeo's Bleeding. You got Gary Oldman, Juliette Lewis, Roy Scheider, Michael Wincott, David Proval, James Cromwell. It is a awesome film. It says Romeo's Bleeding. This is from Wikipedia. Is a 93 neo-noir crime thriller starring Gary Oldman. Blah blah blah. I just told you. It follows a psychosexual cat and mouse game between a corrupt cop and a ruthless mob assassin who begins to unravel his careful constructed double life. It was very, very Tarantino-ish. It seemed like a true romance kind of thing. It's from 93, and
what was the name of it again?
Romeo is Bleeding.
Romeo is Bleeding. I've heard of that. I've never seen it, though.
The one unfun fact from it, I don't like John Bon Jovi anyway. Apparently, he wrote a song for the movie and was so unhappy with the movie that he pulled his song back. So, fuck you, Bon Jovi. It's a good film. Dye your hair, Bon Jovi. There's one other one called Whispers in the Dark, where Annabella is a therapist. It's got John Leguizamo in it. Alan Alda gets a lot of hate as I look at it from the rasp. What are those called? The antithesis of the Oscar. The Raspies, or is that what they are?
Razzies?
Razzies, yeah. I think he won a Razzie, but I think this was really good. I didn't know who the killer was. She's a lady that doesn't like get a lot of sex, but one of her clients is into bondage and is always telling her about it. So she starts having these sexual fantasies about it. And she essentially meets a guy and wants to kind of explore this shit now. And it turns out it's her client's boyfriend. And the client sees them go. She doesn't know, but the client doesn't believe her and thinks that, you know, and then somebody dies. And then it's like, who the fuck did it? They're like literally like 4 different times throughout the film, I thought I knew who the killer was, and I didn't know who the killer was. And I'm never really fooled in those sort of things. It was very dark and sexual, though, both films, and to a certain extent. But I thought both of them were like, how did I miss these? They were both very good films.
Yeah. I'll have to check those out.
She's in Tulsa King if you watch that show with Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, which is very good.
I haven't seen an episode of that. Does she?
Yeah,
how does she look now? No, she's in her 60s.
It's kind of Sopranos-y, you know, and they send Stallone out to Tulsa to, you know, run the racket in Tulsa. He's like 75 years old too.
Well, I know she's in her 60s. How does she look now? How does she look now?
I wouldn't say no.
Oh. I thought legitimately when she was younger and in her 40s, I thought she was like one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen.
Tooch, you got anything you want to recommend before we pull the plug on this one?
Yeah, a couple things. I saw Barbie. You know, I took the girls, and I was like, I'm gonna hate this. I'm like, I'm just gonna focus on eating my popcorn, But I really enjoyed it, man. It was fucking hilarious, man. A lot of Saturday Night Live cast members were in it and stuff, and it's really not for kids. It's more. It's like it's intense social commentary,
Right.
And there's musical numbers. It's a comedy. It's kind of it's a bit of a dark comedy too. And the Ryan Gosling was freaking hilarious, man. He plays like the kind of frat boy. Like there's like dancing numbers and stuff. It was really good, man. I actually enjoyed it. It's probably not your guys' thing, but if it happens to come on free TV, I mean, you definitely would get. Kate McKinnon was really funny. Ryan Gosling was hilarious. There's Will Ferrell is in it as well. I forget who else. There's an Asian American actor who was really funny in it too. He plays like another Ken, Asian Ken. He was hilarious, man. And
I'm actually looking forward to watching it. I'm interested in the career of the director Greta Gerwig. I've seen a couple of her films, and she's going to be one of the big time Hollywood director names.
Yeah. It looked kick-ass too, man. It was like colorful and trippy. It was neat. And then I've been watching Harlan Coben's Shelter on Prime, which is a mystery. It's got a little basketball in there too, and a little Stranger Things kind of stuff. There's only 3 episodes out so far. It's a really cool mystery, man. If you like mysteries, it's got my interest so far.
Cool. Cool. All right, it is time for us to end this show. Dan Aguirre, you got any shout outs? You got any final words? You got any sexual tips for us?
Final couple things. I'll go in rapid, hurry up and get it over with mode. I saw the Smashing Pumpkins again last night. Never disappointed. Great concert. Had great seats. Awesome.
Nice.
Okay.
Original band members too, all 4.
Everybody but Darcy.
Okay.
Everyone but Darcy. But
Who
she was the bass player. Say it again?
Who played bass in the show?
It's a guy. I don't know. She's allegedly on meth and stuff, and hasn't performed in 20 years, so she just couldn't do that. But anyway, so our guy Sonny can't go to the Bears-Packers game now, and that left me with the ticket. And I want to shout out my man Jay Bonds. He's going to take the ticket and pick me up from Aldo's house and take me to the game and bring me back. And it's Jay's first game ever. First ever Bears game. So, and more, we really need to win this game for me and for Jay. So the Bears need to beat Green Bay. I don't know if this is a good sign or a bad sign, but Sonny couldn't go. So Jay's stepping in. I shout him out and thank him for doing so.
Dan, what is your record Bears games?
1-7.
Oh.
So it was myself.
He's going to be 2-7 after that Packers game. Be 2-7.
Well, it was myself and Aldo and Brandy at the Detroit game at Soldier Field in 21 is the only one I've seen that was a victory.
Wow. That's a bad run. Your luck is going to change. And then you had one other thing you were going to share with us, Dan.
Oh, my God. I told you about the basement thing. We talked extensively. I'm getting a drainage system put in. It's as soon as I get back from Chicago after the Broncos game, the next day, it's a 2-day job. They're going to do it October 3rd and 4th. But they added, like, I didn't know I have to have some kind of plug-in that has a ground in it, and they didn't tell me that before. So I called an electrician. This shit's going to cost $500 just to get a fucking outlet put in. It's just like, I'm ranting, but I feel like I can't fart without losing $300. I mean, it's just like every step I take, every breath I take, someone's not watching me, they're fucking me.
Did you get other quotes on that because that seems excessive.
Well, the part of it is this. First off, I asked my friend who was a policeman who's retired, and he recommended this guy because A, he said he could vouch for his work, and B, he used to work for the city and did all the electrical stuff for the city. So again, he's just accredited in that aspect. But part of the bill is he charged me $160 just to come out to the house. Mm-hmm. So he said, total after he's done with the work, he said, look, I'm going to Staten Island, or is it Staten Island, New York for a family reunion for like 2 weeks. He said, so when I come back, I'll do it. But he said, all in all, it should be between $400 and $500, but that allegedly includes the $160 I've already paid him. But either way, I wish the basement, the company that's coming out for that would have told me that before. They told me, oh, by the way, so the appointment is, October 3rd and 4th. You better have this done before, though. Like, why didn't you tell me that first?
No shit. What the fuck?
And then lastly, I'm pretty sure it was somebody I know, but my signal light got smashed. I'm sure it was done to be a dick. I'm not going to say anything farther than that, but I'd ordered the part at AutoZone, took it to a garage, and they're like, oh, man, this is the wrong thing. They ordered you the driver's side. You need the passenger side.
Oh, fuck.
I take it back to AutoZone, and the guy at AutoZone starts arguing with me, telling me that the mechanic is wrong. He's like, no, this is the right one. And I was like, well, I watched him try to put it on. It didn't fit. So I have to beg him to order it and take the other one back. And then he charges me $15 more. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? He goes, oh, that's expedited shipping. I was like, well, I wasn't going to order that. He's like, well, it's done now. So I said, oh, okay. So I can get it on Wednesday then, right? And he goes, Wednesday of next week. I said, well, what the fuck kind of expedited shipping takes 9 days? He goes, it's going to be the 23rd. And I said, the 23rd is in 2 days. This was on Monday. He goes, no, it's going to be 9 days from now on the 23rd. I said, that's 2 days from now. He goes, what day is it today? I said, the 21st. So I don't know who the fuck I was dealing with, but I have I've got the part on the way to work today. It's in a box. I'm going to try to take it to the garage tomorrow. I have no idea if I have the right part or not. I feel like I have a 0% chance of it being the right part because this moron I was dealing with at AutoZone.
Your luck better change before you get on that plane to Chicago for that Packer game, motherfucker.
Yeah, we need something, man. Need something, and hopefully we're gonna have like a.
I'm gonna have
podcast.
I'm gonna have a voodoo lady waiting for you at the airport. She's just gonna take out all these evil spirits that are in you, so that you can start having a good run of luck here.
Like sage, people sage their house.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta do that. You gotta sage me somehow. Like
Exactly.
cleanse me of whatever the cloud I am.
I'm going to have sage all over the basement here so that you and I can hang out.
My dream is to come back and to do the best podcast we've ever had because we're going to be so ecstatic about it being 1-0 and a win over the Packers.
Yes,
can this please just fucking happen? I mean, come on. Don't we deserve at least one of these? Just one? Come on. I mean, we've dealt with so much losing for 30 years. Can't we have one?
Yeah. I'm afraid of what my reaction will be if the Bears lose against the Packers week 1.
You may not want to do a show then, right?
I feel like I will either be very emotional and teary-eyed or I will be very angry and, picking up shit and throwing it around. I don't think there's going to be an in-between. The Bears have to win that game. I don't give a fuck if half their starters are hurt. Got to win that game. I do not want to live with Green Bay Packers sticking it to us again in social media and my friends talking shit. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Matt Eberflus, you have to find that devil guy and sell your soul.
Yes.
Have you noticed he's been wearing regular T-shirts on the sidelines? I don't know if it's because it's the preseason. Is that his new look?
I don't know. I was wondering if he got like an endorsement with Obvious Tees or one of those your companies. I don't know.
Yes. So hopefully this shit gets fixed with my vehicle, and then the basement will be okay somehow, and the Bears win. I told you this, and let me tell everyone else this. I was listening to Sirius XM. I forget which DJ it was, whatever, but he was going on and on and on about the season for a second, and he goes, I can't talk any shit about the Packers because my Chicago Bears are expected to suck this year too. I was like, are we? I thought we were expected to be good this year. Did I miss something? I thought we're playoff bound, right? Or we're at least in contention.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the gamut. Some people predicting we're going to be last in the division. Some people were saying we're going to be in the middle, and a minority saying we're going to win the division. But that's why they play the games, right?
Yeah, let's just hope we can. It's so soon, man. It's just like Cap said in that clip, 2 weeks from Sunday.
Can't wait.
In some regards, it feels like a month from now because where the preseason, especially after watching that Colts game, is such drudgery.
Mm-hmm.
That it just seems like that can't be close from now, but it's fucking close. It really is. They got to do something with that line, though. It really, really. I was concerned before the injuries.
Yeah. I know you were.
It's hurt too. Damn.
You've been texting me about your concerns on the offensive line, and then immediately afterwards, Whitehair hurts his hand. Darnell Wright is limping after a practice. Like what?
Lucas Patrick's always hurt. No one knows why or how.
Jeez, how could that guy be?
One thing we said could derail the season: offensive line injuries or just injuries in general. We needed depth. We needed depth so bad. We needed talent. We needed depth.
Ain't kidding. It's good to see Tremaine Edmonds back. He had a good press conference. He would not reveal what it was that he said he had a couple of things going on with him, but he wouldn't reveal what they were. But he assured everyone he will be there at Soldier Field Week 1 against the Green Bay Packers, and so that's a good thing. And he was asked as well, isn't it going to be hard for you to start to gel with the guys, given you haven't seen any preseason action with them? And he said no, because we've been communicating so well during walkthroughs, during film sessions, just talking stuff. We've got great communication going, so he doesn't expect there to be any rust, or any getting used to the new guys he's playing with. So hopefully he's right.
It's got to be tough to start Week 1 when you haven't really done anything, because Week 1, even it's not Florida heat, but Chicago's going to be hot Week 1.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be 90, I mean, at least you're not on the old turf, but still, I mean, it's going to be hot. Like what I'm saying is his conditioning could be a factor, you would think. Because there's one thing from being ripped and looking like, oh, look how great I appear right now. I'm in great shape, but football shape's a different thing.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I totally agree.
That's concerned. You get in Davis. He's going to be in the same boat, I guess, not play till Week 1. Igakwe, probably not going to play till Week 1.
Yeah.
So there's several guys that you're going to have to probably substitute for more so than you will in Week 3 or 4 when they kind of get their wheels under them.
And just about every one of the 32 NFL teams is having similar problems with injuries. But I got to believe that with the Bears, if you were to total up, 20 players missing practice today, that's a hell of a lot. When you got 90 guys to miss 20, that's I don't do math. What is it, like 70%?
That's 70. So did Komet get hurt? Like is he in jeopardy for Week 1 or do we
Yes, I don't know the extent of the injury, but apparently he was able to walk off the field, but they did cart him out into the training room. So I don't know what the fuck's going on.
He's supposed to be okay, but it's like everything's so secret.
The Bears love to lie, though.
Yep. They can. They don't have to report anything until the week of the first game.
I hope
Wednesday.
that the season starts and everybody is miraculously cured and ready to go, and we're ready to start fucking tormenting the other 3 NFC North teams. Just tormenting them. Can't wait. All right, Tooch, you got any final words? Any final thoughts? Any final good wishes?
Someone mentioned the Notre Dame and Navy game in Dublin, Ireland, and I love the Irish this year. Man, on defense, they only lost Isaiah Foskey. They should be pretty good defensively. They have one of the top offensive lines in the country, and Anthony, I've been going back. He likes Navy. I'm like, man, Navy had such their defensive line is so small. The Notre Dame's like a 3-touchdown favorite. I don't think that'll be a problem. I think Notre Dame will be one of the top 10, 15 teams in the country by the end of the year. Absolutely. They got a new quarterback. They still have a great run game. I think they pound Navy in like their second home in Ireland. But someone said Will Ferrell was supposed to cover the game there. But
yeah, I think it was Stephen Mee said that in the chat. That new quarterback, I think his name is Sam Hartman.
Yeah, Wake Forest. Yep.
Yeah. There's a video out that I guess he signed one of those endorsement deals that the college football players can do, NIL, with Beats, the headphone system.
Okay.
And so in the video, he has headsets for every one of the guys on the team, and they were fucking ecstatic. Nice. And he was like, "I know this is going to be a long trip to Dublin, so you might need some headsets." And good folks over at Beats took care of us. They're all, "Wow, that's a great present! Really, really nice. A good way to endear himself with his teammates." All right, guys, great show. I'm so happy to have Jeff Pearlman on. And
that was great.
Quick prediction, Aldo, before you wrap up. Who is the Bears starting center? Assuming Whitehair's the left guard, who's starting at center? Is it Patrick or Kramer?
I think it's going to be Lucas Patrick. I think they're going to
I
go
do
with the
too.
veteran. I think that they like Kramer, and Kramer could swipe the job away this upcoming Saturday against the Bills. But right now, I'm leaning towards Lucas
Do the
Patrick.
Bears do something stupid like cut Kramer? I can't. I mean, they'd be stupid if they did with the offensive line injuries.
I totally agree. The one concern, though, as Greg pointed out to me, is that he only plays that one position. And so they love guys that are versatile, that can play the interior position if they're a center, play the two guard positions, etc.
I suppose you could stash him on the practice squad with that.
Yeah, which you wouldn't have to worry about him being pilfered. So, practice squad is in his future, I assume.
At
Guys,
least Arlington Hambright was a cult this week and not a Bear.
did you see that? Did you see that? I was actually studying some
What a
tape.
great name. Arlington Hambright.
It really is. A pipe smoking offensive lineman.
Monocle wearing, pipe smoking.
Exactly. Zach Pickens was having his way with him, and so when I was scouting the tape, I said, well, let me see who it is he's lined up against. Oh, number 50 something. Scrolling down. Arlington Hambright, former Bear.
Former Ryan Pace 7th round pick.
Yeah. So I'm not that impressed, Zach. Show me that up against the Green Bay Packers starting right guard.
Those are the picks that Pace was just like, I got no fucking idea. Here's a dart throw.
Exactly.
Now we need some. I better pick an offensive lineman. Fuck.
Right. Somebody from a small school. Anything from small schools?
I'll look smart if I hit on a small school guy.
5-syllable name players. You guys are the best. It's always great doing the show with you. This has been a lot of fun for Jeff Pearlman, Dan Aguirre, Johnny Santucci. My name is Aldo Gandia. We are back here live with more programming. I hope it's on tomorrow. Crosstown Crosstalk. I don't think we've got a Bears show until Sunday. Barfly Tailgate Show. Those guys are back on their weekly schedule and they do a phenomenal job. Yep. So God bless them.
Friday, Tooch and Anthony and Sean.
Thank you.
We'll be going over week 0, all the college football games. If you want to get in on, I put my bet already on Vanderbilt to pound Hawaii and Nashville. So
if you're going to lay a bet anytime this season, make sure you're watching Weekend Sports Betting Tip with Tooch in the lead seat. And what are the names of your two co-hosts?
Sean and Anthony. Yep.
Sean and Anthony. These guys know their stuff. They put the work in, so you're not getting advice from somebody pulling shit out of their ass. So Weekend Sports Betting Tips.
7 p.m.
Friday, 7 p.m. So you can check it out on demand anytime, Friday night, Saturday morning. Get your bets in. All right, guys.
Greg Gabriel's breakdown of this line crisis on Monday.
Yes, exactly. And actually, we don't have a show. Greg and I do not have a show on Monday because he wants to do it on Wednesday, the day after cut downs are made. So he wants to evaluate the roster. So we're going to take Monday off. Maybe I'll jump in with somebody else.
So it'll be us on Tuesday then. The next time there's a
exactly. Well, a Barfly Tailgate show on Sunday, and then this show on Tuesday. So correct. We'll have a lot to talk about next Tuesday. Trust me, a ton. All right. God bless everybody. And God bless Johnny Santucci, Danny Aguirre, our resident agnostic. Safe to call you an agnostic, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. But I respect Christianity. Let's just say that.
I respect it too, but I'm not going to leave my kids alone with any of the clergy people. All right. Got to get some rest here. I got my first appointment with the doctor since surgery tomorrow morning. So wish me luck, everybody.
Good luck with that.
Hopefully they don't say, hey, I can't feel a pulse again. Send it to the emergency room.
Oh, God. Or if they say it's just not healing. We don't know why.
Yeah,
you don't
right.
Hear that either.
Exactly. There's an expediting charge.
I got to talk to Joe about fantasy football, Goon, but I think he wanted to do something this week. I thought, Sunday would be fine. This Sunday, like a preview of the season, and that should be Sundays right after Barfly Tailgate.
Yeah, and on Labor Day, Cliff, Labor Day evening, we're going to have our Barroom Fantasy Football League draft live.
Oh, that's going to be great. I didn't know we were that's awesome. This is great news. That was so much fun.
Yeah,
the Barnum
it's a
Draft
blast.
Show. The Barnum Draft shows are hilarious.
They're funny, and it's a great
You guys
way
haven't seen it. Yeah, you have
get some
to step
intel
in.
on some players. All right, guys. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.